Yep.
Good morning. My name's Martha Donovan. I'm the Vice Chair of the Capital Outlay Committee. Rich Larios, the Chair, is going to be late today, so we're going to start without him. I'd like to open the Capital Outlay Committee meeting for November 9th at 9:03. So our first piece of business is to approve the minutes for November 3rd of 2023. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
I abstain.
Oh, okay. 3-0-1.
3-0, can we do that?
I think, yeah, we have enough.
Okay.
Joe, just to note, at the last meeting before you got here, we made a motion to approve the minutes. There was a second, but I had a question about one of the minutes that looked like it should have been 3 pages long, and it was only 2 pages long. It looked like it was incomplete, so we never voted on them.
Okay,
So
so,
could you look into that?
sure, and generally speaking, you can adopt minutes, you can acknowledge minutes. Even if you adopted them, you can still amend.
Okay.
What was the date in question?
Would have been the third.
Which ones were they?
Was it the 18th,
Was the second one?
18th,
No, it's not that one.
26th?
I'm looking for my minutes. It was October 18th, yeah.
It was 18th.
The
10, 18.
22nd was fine. It just was 2 pages. It didn't have an ending to it, so it looked like we were missing page 3.
I'll check on that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Forget that. Okay, I think we're ready to go forward with the
Excellent,
applications.
so thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members, and folks assembled behind me, and anybody who may be watching now or at a future date. Let me just start right out and say 179. I promised you, Ann, and there it is, right? So we are technically less than 6 months away from our annual town meeting on May 6th. But with regard to capital, you folks, and I would say me and the team, I think we're all making great progress. So to follow on your meeting of November 3rd, we will continue now with the capital outlay plan. However, for the members, I want to emphasize, the 11 by 17 document you have in front of you is meant to be the version related to this meeting, so it should have I should have captured any of the changes we talked about last week, if any. And today, I know that there are changes or errors and omissions that I'll need to account for, and in your November 17th version, you should see that as well. So we are now working on the third draft version for November 9. As you all know, but just a reminder for anyone watching, you've already had discussions preliminarily on facilities maintenance, on public works, on water department, watershed management plan, and wastewater department. So you had initial presentations. So today we begin with the remainders. Sorry, that's probably not the best way to refer to it. Apologies to anyone behind me. But the rest of the plan. And so we're going to start first with our Harwich Channel Director, Jamie Goodwin. Jamie has promised she's going to come out from behind the curtain. And then we'll have for any presenters a copy of the plan, a copy of the form if needed. And with that, I will turn it over to our Harwich Channel Director, Jamie Goodwin.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do we have any questions?
Well played.
Maybe you could just go through, because we do have some new members, like what did the cost cover?
Sure. The cost cover for the 25 through 29 is upgrade for equipment in 2 hearing rooms. 2 of the costs are to continue upgrading our playback server. So every 4 years, they need to be upgraded. Drives need to be removed, new ones need to go in. That's something we've been doing all along. We usually have a 4-year replacement, but I bumped it up to 3-year because things are changing so rapidly that we have to keep up with that. 2 of the items on this list are to update our field equipment, which are cameras that we use to film things like town band, annual town meeting, anything that happens around the community that isn't being housed in a hearing room. We have field cameras and field equipment that we use to go do that. One of the other ones is for camera and lighting. to upgrade at the community center studio, which some people meet over there. We've kind of changed it into a hybrid meeting room slash studio. A lot of this capital improvement stuff, it's on my 10-year capital improvement plan that I've been working off of since 2019. And a lot of these funds have enabled the town of Harwich to be the first to offer municipal television on Roku TV, Apple TV. We were also the first municipality to start broadcasting public meetings with closed captioning. So,
Any questions?
Madam Chair, if I could just,
Yes.
excuse me, add, first, I've been taking advantage of the fact that I have my colleagues in government sitting to my right as we go through this process. I'm going to sound like a broken record. That's a very dated term, but I'm sticking with it. In saying that, as I've said with other directors, the director to my right is exactly the subject matter expert that we want and need in the role. Jamie runs channel, I almost did it.
Channel 8,
The Harwich Channel, yep.
Rebrand.
Yep, runs that operation exceptionally well. I need to have that on the record. However, there's a correction that needs to be made in the form. The priority is desirable, but we could also call that essential. And I would call it essential simply because, for me, aside from the validity of the projects, and every application that you're going to hear from, in my opinion, is absolutely valid, but the director makes it easy on me. You'll see down at the end of the form, are there available revenue sources other than municipal funds? The answer is absolutely. So we will continue to fund the Harwich Channel capital budget through cable funds.
And do we know how much money is in that pocket?
Right now?
The last time I was able to access the cable fund, we had just around $1 million in it.
Okay.
Trying to be a good steward of those funds. We receive money from Comcast quarterly from subscriber fees. So if you get a Comcast bill, which I think we all do because we don't have an option, there's a little thing down there that says subscriber fees. I think it's 64, 65 cents. So everyone in the town of Harwich that pays that subscriber fees is contributing to the cable fund.
Okay, great.
I monitor those payments from Comcast to the town, and I share that with the administration office and the finance office.
Great. Questions? Dan, do you have any questions?
Yes. It's just for information. Do you do any business with the Cape Cod Media Center?
We certainly do. We have an appointee from the town of Harwich. Her name is Dinah Lane. She sits on the board of directors there. I attend their annual meeting every year, and I previously sat on their board for 8 years. So we
Okay.
contribute funds to them annually. You'll see that at annual town meeting, and that is a percentage of the fees that we receive. And each town on the Cape also contributes to that. Well, the towns that Cape Media covers, which is Yarmouth, Dennis, Harwich, and Chatham.
How does your operation compare to theirs?
They're public access and we're government access. So they are the P to the
I
P,
see.
E, and G.
Gotcha.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Ann, any questions?
No.
I think we're good, Jamie. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Take it easy. Thank you.
Hang on, wait till
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Madam Chair. So next up, without further ado, is our fire department. So as I speak, I would imagine that both Chief David Blank and Deputy Chief Craig Thornton are going to join us. And it gives me great pleasure to laud the efforts of Deputy Chief Thornton. I can't laud the efforts of the fire chief because it doesn't work for me. No, truly, of course, I think everyone knows how well-served we are by both of these gentlemen. And as it relates to capital, they do an outstanding job every year because not only are they fierce advocates to make sure that the men and women that serve us in the fire department are well-equipped and safely equipped, but they also do that with a very keen eye on grants and other sources to offset. Now, that's not to say if we don't have any grants available that we've failed at the mission. On the contrary, we know that they're always looking out for the best interests of the taxpayers. So With that, Madam Chair, I'd turn it over to my colleagues from the fire department.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, does anybody have any questions first off? Or do you want me to just go through our plan that we proposed?
Just one statement, Mr. Chairman. It'd be helpful, Joe, in the future to get the information early. I only got this yesterday afternoon. I really didn't have time to review it. So, with millions of dollars of things being discussed, it'd be a lot better for at least me, and I think for a lot of us here, to get the information more timely.
Sure. The only pushback I'm going to give is that there's going to be several meetings that you all meet. I meet on a regular basis with all my departments. Once we had all of the information available, we provided it. So there are any number of activities that interact. The way I'm proceeding is that you heard a presentation last week. Some of that data and information may change from what you heard last week. The information we provide as soon as we can, that's real time today, may change as well. By the time you all reach the stage with me of the capital outlay plan, and before we go to finance and select board, you will have all of the documentation and information that's available. So my team and I strive to get it to you as soon as we can. I would just tell you that we got it to you as completely as we could when we had the complete information. I hope that helps.
All right, so I'll just mention where the ambulances are, and then I can read one.
Sure.
Because it's basically just a stamp for the 3 years. FY 2025, 27, and 29 are where our ambulances are. And in the memo, basically described that we operate 4 ALS ambulance. We actually have a 5th ambulance right now that we saved we didn't trade in the last time. It's not in service on a daily basis. It's only in service if there's a long-term need for it. One or two of the ambulances go out of service for mechanical needs, and that's actually happening right now. One of our ambulances is up at the Ford dealership off Cape and is expected to be out for 3 or 4 weeks. We have another ambulance that had a mechanical failure 2 nights ago. That's at DPW right now. So we were able to put that ambulance in service, and it's been out on many calls and transported patients. So the model is working right now. The trade-in value for those ambulances is just about $5,000. So we thought this time, let's save it and see if it's going to work to the town's benefit. And so far, it's worked out.
So how many ambulances in total again?
So we have 5, but 4 are in service. We've maintained 4. And there's one that we basically just call a spare. It's at Station 2. It doesn't have all of the equipment on it that the other 4 ambulances have on it. It's not ready to go. So it needs to be, all the equipment needs to be transferred from one ambulance to the other ambulance to be put into service.
And this plan doesn't account for adding any beyond the 4?
Does not.
Just what we
Okay.
say.
And the difference between last year and this year, is that just the cost increase of buying the ambulance?
It is.
$90,000?
We are in unprecedented times, and you'll see as we get further into our presentation of the cost of vehicles is astronomical right now, even just regular vehicles,
Right.
pickup trucks, everything else. The other thing that we're facing, which is a concern we're trying to look at, one of the reasons we kept the spare is the cost of repair and the cost of manufacture are both longer. So this ambulance that's up at Ford, it's an oil pan leak. It's been there for a week already for what was supposed to be a week repair, and it's not even close to coming home, and that's no fault of anybody else's. It's them trying to get parts, it's everything else. So when we made the decision, part of it was we're looking at downtime that's much longer than it used to be because parts are backordered and costs are so much more expensive. So that's, we're definitely feeling the pressure like everybody else is, and we're just trying to account for that.
Okay. Just want to make sure that I understand why the numbers are up.
Absolutely.
Any-
Like, and to piggyback on what the chief said, God forbid an ambulance got totaled for any reason, you're looking at 2 to 3 years in order to actually see an ambulance that you order. So that was one of the big reasons why trying us to keep that spare ambulance and just try to have some foresight in
So
case
what's
something
the
would happen.
oldest ambulance that you have in the fleet?
So that one's, would be 8 years old, 9 years old. old.
And that's, so
So that's
this is
the
one you
last one that should
replaced
have been
first?
replaced, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's probably closer to 9,
9 years old.
yeah.
Okay. And what would you say is the average life? Like, is 8
That-
years too long?
So for it to be frontline, to be running on a daily basis, one of the 4, we've kind of figured out 8, that's about 160, 170,000 miles. It's about as old as we want them.
Okay.
They're inspected, as the deputy pointed out in his memo, they're inspected yearly, and we start to get the, like, cracks in the body or things that are no longer repairable start to happen at that point.
Okay.
Try not to keep them that long. But as a spare, this one was in really good shape. The DPW does a phenomenal job of maintaining the fleet. And we had a good conversation with Kyle ahead of time and said, you know, for $5,000, it seems like it makes more sense to keep this truck. And he agreed wholeheartedly, and like the deputy said, it's paid dividends in its first year already, so.
Great. So, do you have more to say about ambulances? I was gonna go to questions
ambulance.
after that.
About ambulances, so this price that we have on for FY '25, the
Yep.
$520,000, that came right from our manufacturer that has manufactured the ambulances that we currently have. FY '27 and FY '29, they're placeholders, so I don't know what it's going to be like in 2 years, never, in 4 years. You know, we don't, a lot of some of this cost is being attributed to some of the labor issues that has been going on with the Ford, materials, et cetera. The Kentucky plant, which is where most of the Ford F-550 chassis get developed, that got shut down during the strike, and then now it's gonna push those prices up, and it's gonna push the availability for those ambulance chassis further down the road.
Right.
So, that's
Ann,
what I wanted to add.
So, question, and I'm just going through to see if it's here. Your call volume, and like if this was a graph, is there like a increase, or are we steady state?
About the same.
Yeah, about the same, 2 to 3%. It depends. We go up a little bit, down a little bit every year. I think last year, I'd have to look at it, but we were probably up about 3% total
3%.
call volume. And there was a shift where, and it's kind of hard with COVID. COVID did the opposite for us. So everybody was like,
Slowed
COVID, you know, fire departments are going to go through the roof. We actually stopped going to calls.
Right.
And people stopped calling the fire department, they didn't want us there, they didn't want strange people in their house, everything else, so it's kinda hard to look at the graph, cause
yeah,
it
which
dipped.
number, yeah, which
it
number
dipped
to
and
go
now it's
from,
kinda
yeah.
back up again, but we consistently get busier, just not, you know, how much it's just different.
Is there like a number of calls? And yeah, COVID is outside because that just,
You're
you
right.
can't compare any number to that because it doesn't make sense. But how many calls do you do a year?
So we 48,
Like
63,
4,800.
yeah, 4,800 last year.
4,800.
I know those about 29,
Our ambulance.
2,900 were transports.
2,900 transports. I think that helps when people say, why do you need a new ambulance? How many
Sure.
times are you going out? Yeah.
And if you look at the last page of the information the deputy provided, or is that just in our
That's
packet?
just in our packet,
All
but
right.
Oh,
I can
okay.
get these guys a
But we'll
copy.
give you a copy of it, but it's just a copy of the ambulance receipts. So we bill out well over $5 million a year. We take in about 1.8, and then through another program, we take in about another 200,000. So close to $2 million comes back from insurance,
Okay.
Medicare, Medicaid.
Does that money go back into the general fund,
General
Joe?
fund.
General
Yeah.
fund.
General fund.
Okay.
Yep.
Those are all just great things for the public to know. It's like,
Yep,
somebody asks you, why do they need a new ambulance? I can say, we had 4,800 calls, you know?
right, yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that.
Anybody have any questions about ambulances?
I do.
Go for it.
Oh.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
In the past, we've looked at ambulances and somehow the chassis and the box have been separated, and you just said that there may be, with the strikes, with COVID and so forth,
Yeah.
the chassis is what's been disrupted. Is there any thought process, keep the box? No? Okay.
Not at this time, and a lot of it has to do with how long you're gonna be out of an ambulance for to have that actually accomplished, and the cost of it.
This is a total,
No, it's, yeah,
this is for a total box.
Yeah, this is a total ambulance. So we talked, and this was back, actually one version of ambulance ago when we were buying larger chassis because we felt they would last longer. My predecessor, when I was deputy, we talked about it. The problem is that it's almost a year downtime for the ambulance to be rebuilt.
Okay.
The cost is almost the same as buying a new ambulance because the the amount of equipment they have to replace to bring it up to this current standard, and we lose that ambulance for that period of time while it's gone, which is, you know, that now we're short a vehicle for that whole time. So it's not, it really doesn't work out. And plus with this F-550 chassis, their longevity is not what that previous chassis longevity would be.
Okay.
Are there questions?
Questions?
Dan?
Just curious, what kind of backup arrangements do you have with other towns? And are they reciprocal?
Yes.
And to what extent has
So-
Harwich have to rely on backup and then vice versa?
Yep. We don't have to rely on backup as much as we used to. As we add more staff, we have ambulances that are in service. We can provide the service to the citizens, quickly with the people that we have on duty, and as well as the people that are coming in from off-duty. We have a very, very robust off-duty individuals, paramedics and EMTs that come back when the ambulances go out the door and they transport to Cape Cod Hospital. There are times, Brewster, Chatham, Dennis, Orleans, request mutual aid ambulances because their towns are stripped or they don't have the personnel, and vice versa. We're not, by any means perfect when it comes to being able to staff all of our calls immediately all at once. And there are times that we do have to call in other communities, whether it's Brewster, Orleans, Chatham, or Dennis. It doesn't happen that often, but it happens. Our mutual aid system on the Cape is very, very fluid and very robust, and it's been around for a really long time. We all have reciprocal agreements with each other to provide whatever is needed, whether it's an ambulance or an engine, depending on what's happening in their town.
And what are the financial arrangements, if any, with that type of
So the only
reciprocity?
financial is if they do the transport, they get the billing for the patient. Other than
Okay.
that, it's part of our service. So a run in Brewster is just like a run in Harwich for us. If we go to Brewster, we're gonna transport the patient, we're gonna bill the patient.
Okay.
But there's no charge to the town of Brewster.
Okay.
And there's no charge to Harwich if Brewster comes here.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question. What percentage of your staff are paramedics?
A little over 50%, a little over
And
50%.
is it just the paramedics that make the call, or does there have to be a paramedic on the call?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, the state regulation, there are BLS calls that we can send just EMTs are, but the majority of the calls have some type of,
Basic life support.
basic life support. Thanks, Joe, sorry about that.
Or advanced life support, yeah.
Yeah, so those are the two, basic life support, advanced life support. You need a paramedic for advanced. The protocols are such that even the most minor calls typically require a paramedic now. And we start the day with a minimum of 2, 1 in each station. We usually have more than that because there's 4 or 5
Five
in
on
each
each
shift.
shift.
But, yeah, everybody does everything. You come to work, you're on the ambulance or the fire truck or whatever goes out the door.
And the higher priority calls, cardiac arrest, other priority, they require 2 paramedics on the truck. And we're able to do that, but it's fluid.
Okay, I think we're done with the ambulances.
Okay. So for the second item in FY '25 is a vehicle, and that vehicle is to replace Car 70, which is a pickup truck. It's a 2006 F-350. It has rust and corrosion on the body and on the underside of the bed of the vehicle. We're at a point we're probably going to be looking at replacing the bed of the truck if we don't replace it at some point in the near future, based on the rust and the corrosion. It's a little bit heavier duty vehicle. It tows one of our trailers, Barnstable County. It's a regional technical rescue team. It's a 24-foot trailer. It's a very heavy trailer, so the truck actually needs to be a little bit more heavier duty. It can't be pulled by a half-ton vehicle. It has to be pulled by a 3/4-ton vehicle. And that's why that price in there is a little bit more than some of the F-150s. We're looking at $90,000 to $95,000, depending on what you put in there for options for vehicles. So that is the other item for FY '25. It's to try to replace that 2006 F-350.
So I have a question for you, Joe. The prices of these trucks are much higher than what we saw last week when Dan came in. So when we price, and I get there's probably specific things that you need versus wastewater, but some of the vehicles have got to be similar. Like, do do we compare the price of the vehicles from department to department, or each department just goes out and prices a vehicle?
Well, it's probably the latter. However, I think you'll recall that Kyle Edson and Lynn Cooper mentioned that any vehicle that the town acquires, if at all possible, we'd look to maintain or at least provide gas and other services and things like that. So there's always a connection between vehicle maintenance through DPW and the departments. However, in the end, you're right, it's really what vehicle will meet the programmatic needs of that particular department.
Yeah, I just think I left last week thinking Dan needs to go back and revisit his pricing, because it just feels really low.
Compared to this.
Yeah, it was $60,000. I just think you can't buy a truck for $60,000.
So, I can't speak for Dan,
Yeah.
but I'm assuming almost everything that we buy vehicle-wise is off state contract.
Right.
So those prices, you literally call them up and say, I need to buy a F-150. So my guess is the difference between what we're talking about is Dan's probably buying a lighter weight pickup truck, which we priced and we considered and would be about that $60,000 or $70,000
Okay, all right.
range. Where ours is a heavier duty pickup truck with a light package.
With the Whalen light package and.
Right.
Radios
or
and
a
all that
lighting
stuff,
package.
which adds cost to the vehicle.
Yeah, no, I would expect
Yep.
yours would be more.
A little
I
bit
would
more,
expect
right.
that, but, yeah, I thought 60,000 was light, but.
It may be, but
Things are going.
yeah, it's crazy.
Out of-
They're
out of
ridiculous,
control.
right? I'm like, I just bought a new car and I was bowled over with what I had to pay for it, and it's not a fancy car. All right, any other questions on Dan?
There, again, for my edification, I'm from New York originally, and in New York, the Office of General Services would have a list of suppliers, vendors that they negotiated a price for. Does Massachusetts have anything?
Yes.
Okay.
It's OSD, right, Joe?
Right,
Off-
yep. And that's what the deputy was just mentioning. When we say we buy it off of state contract,
Okay.
that's the similar language.
We have a
Okay.
couple couple dealers that I won't name though, but we have a couple people that we call and we say, this is what we're looking at, and they'll send us an estimate of what it's gonna cost and a hopeful accurate estimate what it's gonna cost in a year.
Right.
In the tip, just so you know, typically it's about 20% off list. State contract is, they have to submit an RFP to the state, but it's about 20% off list price. And we buy all of our fire equipment off state contract, all of our radios, everything else, because it simplifies the procurement process.
And I would just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I would add that, given that we're talking about vehicles and pricing in October and November, given the vagaries of the marketplace, Wall Street, all of that, we're always sensitive to that. We definitely never want to lowball, because if we don't have sufficient appropriation, we can't procure. And that's straight up statute.
Right.
Additionally, what we're, seeking in fiscal year '25, aside from the plan, is appropriations. So the moment that we have an appropriated vote of town meeting, department heads have the ability to begin the process of acquiring, knowing that the funds will not be available and the procurement cannot occur prior to July 1st. But the point is, we're trying to keep that window low or short. That, yeah, we were talking October, November, we got money in May, and we're purchasing in July, so. And then with the state contract and the vendors that are out there, they know the drill. So when they're giving us a cost estimate, we'll usually get an alert if something has changed drastically. And it's as the deputy said, we've got labor strife out there in the Midwest, and some of the producing plants and all that. So if anything happens extraordinarily, we'd be aware of it. And then I think what could happen, well, I know what can't happen. If we have a dollar amount in the article, we can't go past that. It's beyond the scope.
Right.
So we're very sensitive to all of that.
But between now and when the article would be written, we could potentially
can
make
amend
some.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Even the night before. No, quick question. Is there a backup to GSA? In other words, the Mass schedule, the New York schedule are all keyed off of GSA schedules, I'm assuming.
If by GSA, you mean General Services Administration for the government?
US, yes.
No, those are separate and distinct. We could, in certain circumstances, however, tie into a federal schedule, but more often than not, they're no better than than what we get from the state schedules.
I'm just thinking of volume on that side
Right.
versus
Yep.
the unique volume of the state.
We also take advantage of several cooperatives. We bought the last
Yeah.
2 or 3 fire trucks off the Houston-Galveston area, so.
Like buying
Yeah.
refrigerators and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So
Get the best
wherever we
prices.
can get the best pricing from,
Yeah.
we typically do.
Okay.
Dan?
I just have to say this because I had the occasion to episode, I should say, to have ambulance services. And from the time that the staff walked through the front door to the ride to the hospital, and then finally in the hospital, I was very comfortable. The paramedics stood right by me, talked to me, monitored all of the blood pressure and that kind of thing. And I ended up having to have stents. But I can't speak highly enough with your operation.
We appreciate that.
We're very proud of the men and women of the department, and they are extremely professional and
Very,
compassionate.
yes.
The
And
Lariat
this community
household
needs
wants
it.
to ditto that plus squared, okay? So you guys,
We will certainly share
Matt
that.
and
with-
your brothers back there,
Absolutely.
we got the best.
We do.
There's no doubt.
Thank you.
Anything else, ladies?
Nope, not on that. They have one more item to present, I think.
What do you got?
I have a couple more.
Yep,
you
you've
do.
got it.
This might create
Got
some
a truck.
discussion.
Oh, okay.
That was
Right,
it.
so FY '26, we'll talk about the number in a minute. FY '26, we have a pumper, which would replace the 2012 pumper that's at Station 2. And when I say replace, it would become first line. If we were to be able to secure funding for a new fire truck, it would go in place of that first line truck. That truck would go into a backup status. All right, so NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, they recommend that vehicles that are maintained in good standing get replaced at the 15-year mark, or start thinking about it.
Spare, right? I mean, they don't, not replace.
Not replaced, but be moved into a reserve status, exactly. So, this was originally put in FY '28, and as we started calling the manufacturers and asking how long
That's right.
some of these trucks are taking to build, and how much they're costing, we decided that we would move it up to FY '26 for conversation. They're telling us anywhere between, basically 3 to 4 years for these builds. And then you're gonna see the price there of $1.3 million for a new fire truck. That obviously made our jaw drop a little bit. Right now, they're about $950,000 to a little over $1 million. When we called our dealer, he said, a real safe number is $1.3 million for 2 years out. I don't have a crystal ball, but if you were to put a safe number, I would say 1.3. And for an example of how much these vehicles are costing, Orleans Fire Department just got approved $1.6 million to replace their tower truck. It wasn't enough. 2 nights ago, they had to go back to the taxpayers for $500,000. So their total cost of that tower truck is $2.1 million. So we're just seeing these prices go, unfortunately, through the roof. Chief and I kind of made a decision that for the length of times that it's taking these trucks to get built, and how the prices are starting to increase so much, that we would put this in the FY '26 plan and have a conversation about it.
This replacing something?
It would not replace it. It would be engine 6.5, which is the first new engine at Station 2, is a 2012 Sutphen. It wouldn't replace it. The Sutphen would go, the 12 would go into reserve status. It would go into a backup engine mode. And it would go first.
Have you identified a need that this has to come on board?
Yes, so
So
our 2 engines now, the primary engines are 2012 and 2014. They have 65 and 80,000 miles on them respectively.
right?
We operated up until recently on a 20-year replacement for fire engines.
Right.
So the 2012 should be replaced in 32. We moved it to 28 last year.
Right.
Because we identified a little bit of an increase in the build time and the mileage on the vehicle and everything else. One of the reasons we're trying to keep that engine when we do this as a spare, it's a good shape, but not necessarily for frontline services. The other engine at Station 2 is that, and you may remember, you may have been involved in the process, I know you were, is that urban interface. It's a four-wheel drive
Yeah.
engine.
Uh-huh.
It serves a very good purpose, but it's not a great everyday fire truck.
Okay.
So we went away from having 4 spare engines when we went with the Quint. What we're finding is we're putting that 2018, that urban interface in service a lot more first due. And when we do, it's not necessarily as functional as we would like. It's great if it's snow on the ground or we have flooding and if we gotta go off-road in some areas. So it definitely serves a purpose, but being able to keep this 2012 and replace it a little bit early, number one, gets us kind of in line with the NFPA guidelines and also puts the department in better shape because the headquarters engine is actually the one with the higher miles on it. And that's where the new engine would go and everything would get kicked down.
Okay, so we keep on talking that we're gonna have a spare.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. In terms, what other equipment or vehicles are considered, have the ability to become spare? Ambulances,
We have 1 spare ambulance now.
Okay.
We kept the trade-in last year
okay?
and run it as a spare.
So you're asking for a new ambulance. Is there one going into spare?
No, then that'll replace this one. So we're keeping the spare ambulance that we have.
Okay.
We're not.
So then we're gonna have a spare truck too.
Yep. Yes.
I think we need, go ahead.
Nope,
Joe?
please finish your thought, but
No, I was just thinking there's a point where, I mean, we looked at where spares are parked in terms of the police department and the fire department, and comes to a point where the used car lot is bigger than the new car lot.
So what I would tell you for the fire department, so the ambulance, and you were out for the beginning part of the conversation. We have 4 ambulances and
Right.
a spare.
Okay,
The spare has no equipment on it.
okay,
It only goes in service when one of the other 4 is out of
Okay.
service. A spare engine for us has a different connotation.
okay,
There's 2 engines at Station 2. If the first engine goes out on a call and we have people come back and cover the station, that second engine is in service and responds to calls.
okay.
So that's the capacity we're talking about putting this other engine in.
I think there's gotta be a better terminology that
Yeah, there is reserve and spare. Those are the 2 words.
like reserved,
Yep.
okay? I think spare
Reserve.
has a connotation of, we need it, but we really don't need it.
Right.
Understood,
You know,
understood.
it's like having a spare car.
Spare looks like my shed.
Yeah, that's our
Can't get
spare
in there.
house.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Joe.
No, quite all right. This is excellent dialogue and exactly what we want the process to yield. What I want to add is, you heard our experts say, for a variety of reasons, we have conversations, as I mentioned, constantly, department level on everything to do with finances, budgeting, and planning. And so when I talked about this, one of the things I did is political consideration. I looked at the plan. Not that that the out years hold necessarily, but if you take a glance at the plan, and if it holds, this is going to be Appendix C at next year's annual town meeting. You can see that fiscal years 27 and 28 are trending higher. We know why. There's some big ticket items that we have in the plan. And then if you look at fiscal year 26, which is closer to fruition, I don't want to say reality, we have space there, so to speak. So the first priority is always, what is the programmatic need? However, there has to be a practical consideration of, and can we handle it? And so what I'm suggesting is, if you look at the plan that's setting up for fiscal year 2026, if that were to hold, it may be that we may not need to do a debt exclusion override. We may be able to have free cash or other sources available. Regardless, there's a marked difference between fiscal year 25, 27, 28 versus 26. So that's always in the conversation, even though we're talking about planning.
I just have one more question on, it's an issue, I don't know if you covered Fontaine at all? Was that a part of the conversation?
We didn't talk about that yet.
Okay. Does you guys, does this town have direct contact with Cape Cod Healthcare and Fontaine?
Town?
I only ask that because at one point, I mean, we would buy stuff just for Fontaine.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I believe typically in parliamentary parlance, silence equals consent. I believe silence in this indication is No, we do not have these conversations.
Formulating words was my sign.
Okay, sorry,
So-
thank you.
My fear is this, there's less and less medical practice going on in general at Cape Cod Healthcare, which affects those visits to Fontaine.
So what I would tell you is, in the first year that Fontaine went online, we had a 700% increase
Right.
in runs to Fontaine.
Right.
Since then, it's plateaued. We've not gone up, we've not gone down. We
So
will,
we're not,
it
we're
will always
not,
be
okay,
busy.
we're not increasing assets due to the request? Okay.
And all of those calls, and I would tell you, and I had to make the statement, I feel like I have to make the statement. I don't care about the ambulance billing, and I can say that from a professional, practical, practicing standpoint. Whether people can pay or not pay, whether insurance pays or doesn't pay, is not my concern as the fire chief. However, all of those Fontaine runs generate revenue through the ambulance billing for the town. So,
I appreciate that, but mine is more on the numeric side.
understood.
In other words, do we have the time to manage, or they call us, we have to send somebody?
Yep.
Do we get to a point where we're at a hazardous level of employees because we're being that 700%, that's where,
And I would say no more so than the nursing homes that we have in town
Okay.
and the other doctor's offices that we have in town. They all put a stress on the EMS system.
right,
And we have a mutual aid system that helps when we can't meet the threshold, and the rest of the time, we handle it with our current staffing and apparatus.
Cape Cod Healthcare put a new facility into Orleans as well. They put an
Yes.
urgent care facility in there, and we were curious to see whether it was going to drop our calls by anything from Fontaine, thinking that you would probably pick up those individuals from Orleans, Eastham, Wellfleet coming down, and our runs dropped three runs from that period of time, so it really,
with that comment, last week, they just put out a new Cape Cod Healthcare.
Yeah.
That in fact, the hours and changes to Orleans because winter,
right,
okay, and the population drop.
right.
They literally are closing, so forth and so on. So that's good for us, okay?
It is.
I
I'm
have,
good.
I have one question on the schedule. There's 750,000 in FY '28. Was that the 1.3?
That
Yes.
is the one.
So do we delete the 750?
Yeah.
And move it
Okay,
across.
so that's a fix in the schedule that we need to do,
Yes.
because there's
Saved
still
twice.
750.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah. And there's no.
See, further proof that there's transparency. I don't take numbers off unless we talk about it.
I'm a numbers girl.
Yep, no, and
There
point
you
well
go.
taken, so absolutely change that. And the good news is it's gonna change the overall cost
Yay.
of the plan for 5 years.
All right.
Last year, I thought we had on the capital plan an F-350, small size pumper.
F-550, yes.
Did that come in?
No, it's probably going to be a year and a half out,
Okay.
if not more.
Because I think that's a great piece of equipment. For example, where I live in West Harwich, I've seen one structure fire and about 8 or 9 auto accidents.
Yep.
And those would be great pieces of equipment to respond to that type of call and save that wear and tear on those big, expensive machines. I think that's, for both stations down the road to strongly
The-
consider.
There's some standards that we have to meet with pumping capacity and stuff like that we can't necessarily replace them with. Like, it doesn't have ladders on it, so it's not a real fire truck. Same thing with that four-wheel drive truck at Station 2. So they identify them Class A pumper, Class B pumper. It's not a Class A pumper, and we have to maintain a certain level of Class A pumper.
In-house.
Yep, for ISO, which affects our insurance and to meet standards. So, yes, I agree wholeheartedly with you that that F-550 has a great purpose in the town, and it'll be an asset, but it can't 100% replace a full-size engine.
Right. Just one more question, and we spoke about it before. Right now, when you have an EV vehicle that catches fire, you just pour water on it. I've read 6,000, 10,000 gallons of water. What do you do when you have an EV fire right now?
Have you had an electric vehicle?
The best practices is just to cool the area that's burning.
Okay.
Hopefully you can get to it with water. There's manufacturers out there that are making a whole bunch of different blankets and, who knows what's gonna actually work, what's not gonna work. I saw in Europe, they actually have trucks that come over and actually pick up the vehicle that's on fire, and they dump it into a huge container of water. You know, it's really just cooling the area that's burning for us.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
I think there's one more question here.
Yes.
One more question. So I think you're right to move it up, given our discussion this year and next. So the understanding is if this goes through, then when can you place the order? Because with this 2 or 3 years out.
So it would be similar to anything in fiscal year '25. It would be a May '25 ask
May
because it's
25.
fiscal year '26. When we go through this process again next year, the team already knows that '25 goes away, so '26 becomes the budgeting year.
So
We're gonna re-energize the quotes and everything else.
So given what you just said about Orleans and the cost, is there reason to bring it even farther up? If Orleans just had to do a separate meeting and add another $500,000 and the costs are only going up?
I'm hesitant to do, I think we're comfortable with it being in 26.
And
We've-
the
we've-
number that we got from
We've
the
gone,
director.
we've always gone.
Even if you wait 2 years for the build or
Yeah.
more?
Well, it's probably gonna be 4 years for the build.
That's another, it's
Yeah,
like, is
but
it
I
in the
don't know
right
that
year?
moving it
That's
up
what
is
it
gonna
was.
change that number a lot.
And that's where it was in your original plan anyway.
Right, no, I think
Right.
she's talking about moving it
Moving
this
it-
way.
moving
No,
it
no,
up.
but I mean, you
Yeah.
get it approved, it would be,
Right,
it
if
would
we
come
did
in your
26,
original
it's in
plan
30,
year.
Yeah, right, so that's kind of what we're thinking, we're actually replacing it on time, because it's gonna take so long to build.
Right.
I think that we're
Already
good
the
with it,
cost part.
and I think we're hoping, in the people that we've talked to, the manufacturers and everything else, that the numbers kind of settle out a little bit, as the economy kind of does whatever it's gonna do. So hopefully, next year, when we're having this conversation, we'll have a better number, and we will come into town meeting, assuming the manufacturer honors the number, with what the actual cost of the vehicle will be. We've done that always in the past,
Sure.
versus, you know, it being high or whatever, so.
It's just you're in a time of serious uncertainty, so sometimes you move it to a time where it's a little bit more certain, and so that's just a
But I think
question.
to Joe's point, he's also trying to manage the dollars needed in FY
Each year, yeah.
'25 versus
Yeah.
'26. so-
Sure, absolutely, but that's also the whole ballgame, right?
Right,
In other words, what we're doing is we're prioritizing programmatic needs first.
yep.
We have a standard number, if I can say it that way, of available funding sources. And as Kathleen Barrett, our finance director, and I progress through that process, you know, we have a sense of numbers today, but we don't have certain numbers today. That's why I'm not identifying specific funding sources on November 9th.
9th, right.
But yeah, it's all about what do we prioritize, why, when, and for what purposes.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
But for the sake of discussion.
Well, I'm sorry. Through the chair, may he ask me a question?
So, my understanding is,
400 pieces.
my understanding is,
Yep.
if this were to be approved in May of '25 for the FY '26 budget year, we're not gonna borrow this money until we purchase the vehicle. So if there's a
Correct.
4-year build time,
Correct.
so to some degree, and I'm not trying to minimize, I know we try to balance the debt in the years as we go forward, but the borrowing may end up being in a year where we're already borrowing a lot more money for something else based on when the vehicle is built.
Absolutely correct, and it couldn't have said it any better. And we talk about debt capacity and ability to do all that, so that's exactly what goes into it. Yep.
So I guess, back to your point, which is if we put it on this year as a debt exclusion, there wouldn't be an impact necessarily in FY '25 or '26 or '27 for the year, if we were to move it up. And
In theory, correct. If we were to do that, and if that's how the conversation progresses here, and equally importantly, on December 4th, when it's jointly with the Finance Committee and the Select Board, then it's incumbent upon me and the Finance Director to talk about our borrowing capacity.
Right.
Are we in a position to go out to the bond market next spring for those borrowings?
Okay. In the past, we've called about, placeholder kind of stuff, and that's what we're really saying, with concern of 4-year.
4-year,
So, we don't have an answer right now.
right. It's just
So,
good, it's good to.
I'm really concerned about 25, so we can get, that authorized, that approved. And I'm glad you guys looked into the future, told us what you need. I haven't heard anything about You know, is the firehouse fine? I mean, are we good? Does it meet your needs? Do you see any increase, anything like that?
Anything that the firehouse needs has come under building maintenance, would have been
Okay.
brought up by Sean Levy, so he,
Then we're good.
yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you. Any more questions?
I got
Yes.
one more item, unfortunately. Yeah.
If you
The one more
insist.
in the
Yeah,
packet.
and so it's an FY '27. It's to replace the inspector's vehicle, and there's a little typo on my end. It's not a 2012 Explorer, it's a 2006 Ford Explorer
At 75,000?
at 75,000.
We're good.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, gentlemen.
We could have you guys here all day.
Not sure our
We're learning,
counterparts are gonna be
we're
happy.
learning more and more.
Thank you very much.
Golf next.
So next, we'll have our Director of Golf and our Superintendent of Golf.
This is the last
Did I
one.
finally get it right after 4 years? Thank you. So we've
Thank
got
you, guys.
The
Thank
second.
you.
Thank you.
Roman Greer and Sean Fernandez, respectively, our Director of Golf, Superintendent of Golf. And on your plan, we're looking at a mere, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, for right now, 2 projects, but one that of great importance for fiscal year '25, and one that is a placeholder for fiscal year '29. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would turn it over to my colleagues from the Golf Department.
Good morning. So yeah, as Joe said, we have 2 projects for you. One is FY '25 irrigation upgrade. That's been on the capital plan for 5 years now, so that's just coming up due. Sean has a brand-new number for that. I don't even think you have yet, Joe. 2.5 million we got yesterday as a up-to-date and number that we're very comfortable with going forward.
2.5.
Yes.
Is that a new truck for you to drive around?
2.5 instead of
No
2.
trucks in there.
What's driving the price increase?
So understand, well, again, you know where we're at with the conversation you just had with them, but the conversation I had with the gentleman yesterday was gonna be labor costs and supplies. So supplies, we did this, what makes me laugh is, I didn't think I'd be here this long, but 20 years ago, almost 20, when I did the irrigation system back in 2005, we did, the way that we did it was anticipation going forward. So what we did was, we used what we call high-density poly pipe, which is gas line pipe that's welded. We did that, and we put the quote in so that we could do that, so then we didn't know how long that pipe would last. Well, it looks like that pipe could last close to 50 to 60 years. Well, being the case, we don't have to do pipe this time. We're just gonna do wire, heads, and swing joints, which is everything else. That needs to be changed out. The pipe itself does not need to be changed. So, we thought that that's why the original number was 1.2, way back, and then we figured, but labor costs have gone through the roof, and then obviously cost of goods has gone through the roof. So, what I asked the question yesterday was to the irrigation guys was, give me a system right now, within the last 5 years, what it costs to put it in soup to nuts. And it came back at 2.5. And
With
that was
pipe?
with 2.5.
No, without pipe.
With pipe.
Oh.
With pipe. The reason, but the reason that I left the number at 2.5 was cost of prevailing wage has gone through the roof. And because of that, I made sure that and that includes the contingency at 2.5. So that includes you still have to dig, but you don't have to dig as deep.
You
That's
just
what-
got, unless I heard incorrectly, you said 2.4.
2.5.
That's 2.5.
2.5.
2.5.
And, Mr. Chairman, I would just remind, similar to what we heard from the director for the Harwich Channel, it's an easier proposition, so to speak, in that there are dedicated funding sources within the Golf Department. As you can see in the application, we would be relying specifically on the Golf Improvement Fund for this particular appropriation, and I've been assured, but we'll have the director confirm on the record, that the fund can support this ask.
Yes, and I've been working very closely with Kathleen, the finance director, and yes, we have plans. She's working on the debt plan for us to pay the debt for this project in full out of our golf improvement fund.
And how much is in your golf improvement
We've been
fund?
for the last few years, we've been saving up to begin this project. There's over 500,000 in it currently.
So again, even though the project is 2.5, what we're talking about is the debt payment. So
And
the-
we'll have enough annually.
Yeah, the annual premiums on the debt that
So
we're borrowing.
just for my edification, is it different where they have a fund, when you raise debt, does that debt get paid down by their revenue, or it doesn't matter, it's just all?
It doesn't matter on our end of the debt.
Okay.
Is there anything left on any debt that you guys have?
Yes, correct. So we retired in FY '22, the debt for the original irrigation system and the original bunker project that
And
was.
range expansion.
Everything's paid for.
Everything's paid for except the new cart barn, the $1.2 million cart barn project. That's being paid for in full out of one of the golf dedicated funds as well.
Okay, and to go along with this, I'm assuming that the debt that's being paid on my right hand is coming in on my left hand from Gulf Revenues.
Yes.
When's the last time you guys have, I don't want to say increased, but have adjusted Gulf Revenues, knowing that you
What
have
are they?
another large debt to carry?
So I'm going to start first, if I may, the director, the superintendent, and their team, every year, and it's not just annually, but every year within the year, are constantly evaluating their rate structures or their receipt structures, is how I would call it. So the select board just adopted the budget message for the budget process for fiscal year '25. So the finance director and I will be meeting later today to translate those words into what the numbers would be. Normally, by this time, I think we would have had a discussion on the rates, but I would imagine there is a future discussion of the rates to come up, because with golf, we're talking about rates that actually transcend 2 fiscal years. Your season is,
So our rates are for an annual calendar year when they're approved by the select board.
thank you.
Yes, we are, in our initial drafts for rates and fees that we're going to present to the select board, we are addressing the fund needs as well for the debt upcoming.
And if I could add, Mr. Chairman, just because there's internal discussions as how we operate, there are discussions amongst various committees. And for me, you're always going to hear me talk about in terms of local receipts. So I know you folks know, and certainly our friends from the Finance Committee know, our number one source of funds is the tax levy. So we're going to do the tax reclass, the tax recap later this month, so we're going to know what that number is. The next largest source of funding that the town of Harwich has always relied upon is local receipts. Local receipts is driven by fees like this or rates like this. So even though there's an element of what are the rates that you're going to charge for the, I'm going to try it, daily player, the daily greens player, right?
Yes.
All right, versus a annual pass holder. That's how they talk about it, but when it gets to the finance director and I, we look at it as what is our overall estimated local receipts number?
Right.
So there's going to be an ongoing conversation where, as Kathleen analyzes all of the debt considerations, she may go back to the director and say, any chance you can meet this target, or et cetera.
Is there any type of regulatory that looks at what you can charge? In other words, does Mass say you can't do a 9% increase?
With regard to, and that's why it's important to sort of reframe it globally to the estimated receipts. When the finance director has what I think she's ready to present to the Commonwealth, the Department of Revenue reviews all of our estimated receipt numbers. So that even though we have autonomy to create it, we still know we're going to go to the state through Department of Revenue, and they're going to weigh very heavily. So they can tell us in some instances, we think your estimates for golf receipts or something else aren't sustainable given what we've seen over the past years. So it's not regulatory, but we take their guidance very seriously, and there have been conversations where we've adjusted our estimates.
But does Department of Revenue go so granular that it looks like that it appears to analyze a department that is at 12%, just for a number? They are requesting 12%, and that 12% is literally 0.5% of the total request for an increase in revenue
Sure.
to the Department of Revenue.
So the answer is yes, but I don't think that we, Administration and Finance, nor Division of Local Services, would call it granular level, in the sense that, if memory serves correctly, there is a stated line in the categories of estimated receipts that get to golf.
Okay.
They get to some of the other operations. However, to your point, then there's other departmental receipts.
Okay.
And they look at that as the whole number. They tend not to go into the granular on that. But something like golf, if I'm remembering correctly, is its own category and therefore gets more scrutiny.
Okay.
I have a question. So if you get this approved in FY '24, do you do all the work in FY '24, and when do you do it?
No, so what's gonna happen is, and in '24, because I'm 6 months in advance, it will actually will be actually budget year '25, because it'll
oh.
be July. July turns to '25 in the budget year.
Right.
And I'll actually do construction in November of '25 budget year. Calendar year will be '24
Right, November calendar.
of '24.
Okay, so you would do it in fiscal year '24,
Fiscal year '24 will start after
but
Columbus
at the
Day,
end, after
But-
the season closes.
after the season
Got
closes.
it.
And we'll
Okay.
spend the month, basically the month of October, November, December, until the spring, usually to get the work done.
Okay, perfect.
So then we're looking at 29.
Yes, that's our second request, and that's for bunkers, all 55 bunkers on the golf course to address those, to complete rebuild them, redo the drainage in them. They're due for that. They've met their lifespan at this
2000,
point.
so I'll give you a little history. In 2007, we had the bunker project done. At that time, we redid all 55 bunkers and added drainage, and we put a liner in at that moment. At that moment, I told the architect that I did not agree with the liner, but we had put it in there and it was in. Now, the liner is showing its ugly face, and it's, as you, basically, because we can mechanically rake, we're not a private club, we have less help, we can't go out and physically hand rake the bunkers, so we mechanically rake them. Because of that, it pulls the liner up. And because of pulling the liner up, we're gonna change the process when we do the bunkers in 2029, in which what we would do is go in, resurface the outside, address the, what did I just say? Address
Drainage.
the drainage issue, but the filter that's in
Oh,
there,
yeah, the liner.
the liner, we're gonna pull the liner out, but what we're gonna do is fix the drainage, flip sod, or just basically resod the bunker, and that will become your liner.
Okay.
And then add sand to it at that point.
Has there any consideration with this project?
Mhm.
How many bunkers you have?
55.
Okay. And I don't know what the golf committee, I'm totally, the issue is, has there been any consideration to lessen the amount of bunkers or increase the amount of bunkers?
So that becomes a architect situation in which when the golf course was originally built,
Right?
it was designed in the manner in which what it is now.
Right.
When we addressed this before, we did lose 1 or 2 bunkers, but to keep the championship level of Cranberry Valley, we tried to keep to the basically what the
So
original thought was.
USGA says,
Yeah, so we did have a program with the USGA a few years ago where they gave us, we had data loggers go out with all the golfers to see where they actually were on the golf course.
Yeah.
And we found some bunkers are not used very often.
So we-
And so we've let a few go, and we will let them go
In some
moving
spots.
forward in some spots, yeah. I believe, we put this in as a placeholder for FY '29.
Yeah.
As we get closer, we'll scrutinize that more.
okay.
So you did this in 2007, you did the bunkers?
Correct.
So that's something that gets done every 20, 25
So-
years? Is that how?
So
the-
normally a life bunker, I'll tell you, that a life expectancy of a bunker is about 13 to 15 years.
Oh, so you've gone
so-
a long time.
So, well, again, and Mr. Larios, so I've been here long enough to say this, but we maintain our bunkers very well. We try to do the work. So every couple of years, you'll see that we go out and we resod some faces. We do a lot of rounds. We do close to 50,000 rounds a year. And because of that, a lot of the sand gets splashed up onto the lip of the bunker. So you get this area right along all the whole shooting match where it just basically deteriorates the grass. So because of that, we'll strip out that section and then resod that section.
If I can, yeah, we just had a town meeting article in FY '21 where we paid $75,000 out of our golf improvement fund to resurface this one, saying the most prominent bunkers on the golf course. So we've kept up annual maintenance with them, but that doesn't address the drainage issues.
Right.
Or the
Right.
liner.
Right, okay.
Just a comment to what Sean was saying. That golf course is an asset to this town that is not only a beautiful asset for the town, and it produces a lot of revenue for this town. And it has, I'm a golfer, so I sort of know that the reputation of
Why not?
Cranberry Valley and even speaking to individuals who live on the Cape, who have not had the opportunity, because they think, well, Harwich owns it. So they don't live in Harwich, and they've never played it. And once they do, it's a big boy course, okay? I mean, once you hit a certain age, it's like, I'll stay in a cart and drive around and see how beautiful it is. But it's purely an asset, and it's something that's well worth individuals from the town and outside the town to play it. I mean, it's that valuable.
If I could mention one thing, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary next year, and so we'll be holding a state championship. Massachusetts Golf Association wanted to help us celebrate our 50th anniversary by holding a state
Nice.
championship.
I like
at
free
Criminal.
golf for residents. For that. That's very good. I think that's a wonderful marketing opportunity.
Well, in actuality, Romans, actually, we've been talking with Cindy from Chamber.
Yeah, we were working with the chamber on possibly, an idea just like that, to celebrate the day of the 50th anniversary of the opening by possibly having a resident day.
Yeah, it's.
That'd be nice. Question?
Surely.
So to that point, what is the annual revenue that this creates, since we're talking about it as an asset?
The general fund revenue, notwithstanding these special funds that are fed by us, by greens fees and biannual pass sales, general fund revenue, I believe last fiscal year was $2.26 million.
What do you net out of
2.26.
that?
Yeah.
What's that?
What do you net out of that?
So the,
Round figure.
yeah, so our operating budget was about $1.8 million.
So you make about $500,000. You net to the town.
Which is what's.
Half million?
The town does not acknowledge
And one thing I'll tell
profit
you,
and loss. We are strictly adhering to,
But according to the golf,
yep, I think if a business person were looking at the operation, they would definitely see that it's solid, and they would see that it is solvent.
and that number was I'm telling everybody, that was on a really sunny, great year. You know, this year we were experiencing some rainy Saturdays in the fall that really hurt our revenue. So, revenues fluctuate with the sunshine.
With the sunshine, okay, just a follow-up question on that, because it's, I know we're not gonna do profit and loss, but it's kind of generating a $500,000, but we've got, 2.4 and a 900,000 bunker. Is this to keep this championship level, do I understand that right? And big boy or big girl course? Since I have not been able to get a tee time as a Harwich resident, which I'd love to solve at some point.
Sure. Are you an annual pass holder?
I can't get a tee time, so when you can't get a tee time, why do you pay the pass
Well,
holder?
if you buy the annual pass,
True. No, I don't want to take us down a bad path, That's for something else. I'm just trying to do the numbers here, and just so I can explain it. So the championship level course piece, maintaining this asset, correct?
yes.
Requires these significant investments, is that
Yes.
correct?
Right.
And then what do you get as a championship level that I wouldn't get as a regular course?
So from a maintenance standpoint.
Did you
when I-
just raise your hand?
Yes, I did. Back when I came in 25 years ago, my goal was to give you a private club feel in a public setting.
Okay?
And so basically, we give you that feeling when you come to Cranberry Valley on a public setting. It feels like you're on a private club. And the reason that we do that, and for the residents of the town of Howard, is to provide them a product that's far superior than anything else that you can get at any public golf course, and we do it better than anyone else.
No question. I'm just going to the numbers. I'm spending this much to get a championship level to generate what?
Well, when you say a championship level, that's got more to do with the distance of the
Distance
golf
of golf
course.
course.
Because
Okay.
the town of Dennis has championship courses, the town of Brewster, they have championship courses. I would say ours is in better conditioning, and that's why there's great demand, and we're making good revenue. But it's not like it's a championship level golf course in the distance that it offers to the golfers.
Okay, so I think of myself as the public advocate, so someone stops me at Shaw's and says, what's this about, $1.3 million or 2 point whatever. So I just want to be able to answer those questions in a way that makes sense and supports the town. So it's, yes.
If I may, speaking as a horrible golfer, and still contributing to our town and our resources there. But as someone who moved here 8 years ago, I didn't understand that Cranberry Valley was public. I came from a town that the title said it was Braintree Municipal Golf Course, so you knew it was a muni. So that's how I talked when I moved here. Cranberry Valley isn't a muni, not in the sense that you think of it in other communities and other locations. So what do we get for it? We are recognized, and I can say we, right? But we are recognized by the USGA, the MGA, the LPGA, Junior PGA. We're recognized by all the great golf organizations as a phenomenal place to have events. What that does is it brings people into the town,
Okay.
and when they come into the town, it's not just revenue that's derived there, it's the everlasting effect of we've brought more people into a resort town. What level of championships
demand
outside of
driving, yeah.
public events have you had?
Well, we have a number of events, like, so for really the highest level that we currently have, that we have are these state championships with mass golf. But we have a number of PGA level junior events as well. Annually, we have big events, and we do tie into the big golf organizations like the USGA, as Joe said, like the PGA, and we follow their initiatives and hold events that are national.
So I'm
So
standing in,
if I-
yeah, go
If I
ahead.
may, so even though we provide sustenance for golfers at the location, many folks that are coming here from out of town will play golf and then stay in town, go to Harwichport, go to other locations, and spend that beautiful meals and hotel tax and all that stuff. So there's a residual effect in the positive.
Right, so I'm standing in Shaw's, and what I say is this is a demand driver for tourism in the town, and it's
Absolutely.
worth every penny, correct?
I'm going to steal that demand driver, thank you.
And let me just interject with,
Yeah.
in light of your position that you can't get a tee time or whatever. That's the problem when you have a successful course. It's that so many people want to play it, and trying to level the field of who can play, when they can play,
Is the problem.
is the problem.
Okay,
I'm with you, I am not a member. I've played it, and I used to be,
yeah.
but the issue is, I like to play at a certain time, on a certain day, and so forth. And I can't. So I figure, let the town work it, let it be an asset, and let the people play it that want to do it.
Right, so it's the
So that's
ATM
what-
machine for the town, kind of.
But you could call.
That's absolutely a way to look at it. I cannot lose the opportunity to put out one of the great quotes of Yogi Berra. You know, when he talked about that restaurant's so popular, no one goes there anymore. You know, the golf course is so popular, you can't get on it.
That's.
Okay.
That-
You could have
that's-
a muni
and I
golf
think
course that
that-
you could get
Get
on
on,
anytime.
yeah, so it's the-
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
No,
one
but
thing
it's-
one thing I
You
would
gotta
say though.
defend these, you gotta defend these numbers in a way that makes sense to somebody that's standing in the Isle of Shaw's, because otherwise, we get into problems. So this is really the point of my
I think
question.
there's a reputation out there, there's a number of ways to get tee times. I was just crunching the numbers. We had a number of annual pass holders this year that I think a dozen or so that played over 100 rounds of golf. So our annual pass holders are playing a lot of golf. They have dedicated blocks for them. If you buy an annual pass, you have a dedicated block, and you have access to that dedicated block.
Okay.
Our public tee times are available online. You can log in and book one.
Right, I know there's like thorns in this part of this discussion, so I'm not trying to go there. I'm just trying to get our elevator speech as we move
Amen.
forward.
Great. Amen.
Because when numbers get big, these discussions get silly. So,
So, and
thank you for
understand
that.
this.
But a demand driver for tourism is a great elevator speed that I'm going to
Use it all the time.
start incorporating.
But the most important thing you need to understand is the two things that we're proposing to do are the two most important aspects of that golf course.
Perfect.
Irrigation system is the bloodline. If you don't have an irrigation system, you're not doing anything. Look at last season when we had the drought. Your home lawn looked like,
Yes, it
because
is.
you had no water. Now, I manage water in a different way at the golf course, obviously, but understand that it is the one thing that you need to maintain what you have to, as a product. The second one is your bunkers. If you have bunkers that are in disrepair, or you have stones in your bunkers, or people will not come. When I first got to Cranberry Valley so long ago, one of the first things that I had to do was update the irrigation system and do bunkers, because those are the things that the people are seeing, the green grass and stones in your bunkers. So you need, and quick greens. And those are the things you need to make sure that you're doing to make sure that you can charge the amount that the town of Harwich wants
So
to
that
charge.
really is the circle that we gotta stay with, and, yes,
Do
exactly.
you foresee any other capital?
Yeah, anything else?
To be honest with you, and I say this before, other than, these are the things, they're the big ticket items, that's it.
Equipment, you're
We
good?
do a lease every 5 years, and again,
And we're fine?
yeah,
Your
every
carts, lease,
lease.
At least 5-year lease,
okay. Your barn is good?
brand new, yeah.
Barn is great.
Yeah.
Okay, your barn is good.
No,
Your-
we don't foresee anything.
You have a lease on the restaurant?
Yes.
Everything's good there? The building itself, I know you go facilities maintenance,
Easy with there.
but everything's okay there,
Yes.
and we're done.
So, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman, if I
gentlemen.
could, I didn't want anyone to misconstrue. I'm trying to, don't you dare take that. I'm trying, I'll be lost forever. I'm trying to vary it, but I cannot let these gentlemen step away from the microphone without saying, as I've said of my other colleagues, but you've just heard the value statement, and the value statement starts with the leadership of our director of golf, our superintendent of golf. We are an incredibly fortunate town. At some point in time, people made the decision that we weren't just going to have a run-of-the-mill municipal golf course. By the way, I want to say to my friends in Braintree, I did not mean to suggest that Braintree was simply that. That's a great course, too. However, there was a conscious decision, I believe, over the years to make sure that we have that demand driver that brings people into town, that satisfies folks that move to this town to have that asset. And it starts with the two leaders that are here to my right, and everyone that we employ that work under their leadership. It remains, as most of our, if not all our departments, an excellent resource for the town, and one that will absolutely make the case for the capital needs. But I'd be remiss if I didn't thank these two guys for what they do day in, day out.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, being a resident of East Harwich, I'm lucky enough, at least once a week, to see Sean. We see each other.
There you go.
And I get an update. every- You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for your help. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say, as we have our next department head come up, I don't have favorites. John could join us. All kidding aside, again, and it's easy for me to say great things about great people, because they're great people. And it's easy for me to brag about a golf course that I've, been playing for a few years, but now have a leadership role in as well. And it's easy for me to brag about the harbor, because I had nothing to do with the Saquatucket redevelopment and all that, but the gentleman to my right did. And that, I don't boat, but if anyone wants to treat me to a boat ride, I'd never say no.
He's got it.
But we have a phenomenal harbor, and it starts with our harbor master.
Appreciate it.
You want to talk, or you just let him?
Good morning.
You got this glow about you. I just,
Good to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I suppose, Mr. Chairman, you want me to just go through the yearly projects, and if there's any
well,
questions?
if your family's good, yes, you can start with this, yeah.
Or the big guy.
My family is good,
Good.
thank you. Okay, so FY '25, I have a project to the engineering, design, and permitting for replacing the Herring River boat ramp. The way that, I know I've been before you many years with various projects, but, I typically try to have a year where I seek funding for the engineering and permitting part of it, anticipating that in a couple of years after that, I'll be doing the construction piece, because, as you know, the permitting can be cumbersome and a lengthy process to get when dealing with Army Corps and the state. So I'm looking for $40,000 this year, or this coming next fiscal year, for the engineering permitting to, or for the Herring River boat ramp.
John, can I ask you just, is the 300 in the next, or is the 327 have anything to do with the 40?
I mean, it's the same project, but it's separated, so it's gonna,
Okay, we need
the
to know that,
total
'cause-
project would be $340,000.
Okay, because 40 is under the $50,000 limit,
Correct.
so I don't want to
Oh, right.
So
Correct.
40 and the 300.
Right.
Okay.
And maybe I'm doing it confusingly, but to me,
No,
in my
no, no,
mind,
no.
it makes more sense.
No, but somebody could say, why is he asking for 40? Well, it's 40 of the 340. Okay.
Correct.
So I have just a general question. If you look at the harbor as a whole and all the components of the harbor, what percentage of the harbor activity is recreational versus commercial? If you had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's, how you measure that in just numbers, like how many recreational permits do we have vice commercial permits? That's one way of looking at it. Or are you
Revenue.
looking at revenue generated? I mean, we have a significant commercial, small business operations within our harbors. We have a Freedom Ferry that operates and runs 3 trips a day during the height of the summer with 100 capacity limit. We have 3 other large passenger boats. We have a commercial fleet, commercial fishing fleet. We have a charter fleet. We have a number, what each of these are small businesses that rely upon our waterways and our harbors
Is it,
to run their businesses.
so I guess where I'm going is, this particular project is
Yes.
generally for recreational boaters, is
This
that
is,
correct?
this is at a very, one of our smallest,
Right.
maybe not, Wixon and Heron River, 2 are smaller landings. And yes, I mean, you're gonna get some people who shellfish, who will launch a skiff at our ramp, who are going to commercially shellfish and recreational shellfish. But by and large, this ramp is a recreational ramp.
So the reason I think I've talked to Joe about this, I mentioned this before, so I just want to bring it up in the public meeting. Is there any way that we could use CPC funds for something that's considered recreational boating? Is that within their realm at all?
I think the short answer is we could certainly contemplate it. That's really more of a CPC decision. I think, however, and again, this precedes me and the project and all that, I think, though, in years past, there was a desire to be as transparent as possible. Not that using CPC isn't transparent, but rather the capital plan is meant to demonstrate all of those projects of a capital nature that the town needs to fund other than CPC. And so, given the extraordinary work and the construction projects that were done, perhaps that's why it's here. To the harbor master, do you know if other communities can rely upon CPC for recreation for harbor?
I don't know. All I do know is I had the experience of applying for a CPC grant when I was doing the marina project. It got some positive support, but very quickly was denied because I had gotten another grant through the Seaport Economic Council grant. So,
It's
you
a
know,
little more
how they,
complicated than
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, I
how
just
they would
wanted to ask
approach
the
it from a
question.
recreational standpoint,
But if I could, I think it would be helpful if you can elaborate on that Seaport Council, because I know we're talking about the herring landing, I know we're talking about recreational boating and all that, but the gentleman to my right, how many years did we do? We had the certificates. Every year, John brings me to an event at Chatham. John and I are working on having the lieutenant governor come to Harwich to do those events. Wink, wink. There, put it out there. But every year that I've been here, the harbor master is called to an event to receive grant money from the Seaport Council through the Commonwealth in support of many of our programs. So another example of a department head looking for other funding sources. Could you add anything to that? Because I know it's far beyond the time that I've been here.
no, I mean, I think that's correct. Every year, we've been successful at getting money to support our dredging needs and for the large projects that we've had done. When we rebuilt the Witchmere Commercial Pier, we received $1.2 million from the state to support that project. We received $1 million to support the replacement of our docks at Saquatucket. We received $1 million to support the land demand side projects. So, we've been successful at getting grants, and as you look at some of these projects down the line in my capital plan, I will continue to seek funding to support these large dollar projects. We had been in a position when I got here where our facilities were aging. And I've been before you many times throughout my tenure with some big projects, but I think you're seeing the benefits because we've just about have replaced and upgraded our infrastructure throughout our waterways. And we have a lot of waterways. If you think about how many harbors we have just in our town, it's significant. You got, so anyways.
And if I may, we now recognize that the harbors are a demand driver for tourism.
But
There
I'm
you go.
bummed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brandon, I'm applying it.
And then they go play golf.
Sure.
One question? Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So just to back up Martha's, to continue my soundbite point, this idea about what percentage of the harbor is commercial versus recreational would be very, very helpful. Is it 30-70, 40-60, something? Because if you look at the harbors, it's a great asset, but it's very difficult to get a mooring, which we've talked about before, and things like that. So if there's a way to capture that value or where it breaks, that I think would help, so it doesn't look like we're housing lots of people who have a great deal of incomes boats.
Sure. The harbor master and his team, an exceptional team, and certainly Michelle Morris would probably be the resource. She's our expert for harbor master munis accounting software and all of that. There's any number of ways that the harbor master may be able to quantify that.
Yeah.
Again, as I've heard our harbor master, and build on a phrase that I use all the time that the department heads may be sick of, is, words matter. So we may be able to provide the data points that you're looking for. However, whatever those data points yield, we'd then be back where we're always at. What is the priority? What do we want to prioritize? We could have theoretically far more commercial enterprise, but then that cuts back on the recreation use, the demand drivers and all of that, or vice versa. We could crowd out the commercial enterprises, but that would have a tremendously negative effect on the smaller commercial enterprises that I think make Cape Cod what it is. So I've heard our harbor master talk about any number of ways we could do that. Do you have a preference, or do you have something that immediately comes to mind that you think you could create a narrative on residential versus commercial?
I mean, the easy thing to do is give you a percentage of permits, right? We issue permits to every single user of our slips
Yep.
and our mooring fields. That's an easy number to give you. The harder number, I think the more valuable number, frankly, is the revenues generated from each population, whether it's the commercial population, the passenger boats, the charter boats, or the recreational boats. And that has an impact on our department and the town.
Right.
We work very hard to preserve the availability for the commercial fleet.
Yes.
We've introduced winter dockage to be able to support not only our home-based commercial fleet, but the area, the commercial fleets from Chatham and some of the neighboring towns who come in and operate out of Harwich throughout the winter. When we have dockage available, they're still fishing.
Yep.
And we provide, the ability for them to come in and operate. So I think that's important. We're very committed to that. But I think those are two ways we could look at it.
I just want to make sure that in my questioning and asking that question, I was in no way trying to say that we should favor one over the other.
Right.
No,
And
and I wouldn't
so-
say that either, but.
Yeah, I was getting
But
to.
when data comes out, that
Right,
may lead to
right,
that.
yeah, and I agree with
But
that,
we
and that
shouldn't
wasn't
fear
my
that.
intent, like, I was more trying to understand.
Sure.
Could we use CPC funds, right? Because to me, those were, I'm gonna say this wrong, but I'm still getting to understand how they get used, and they seem like they're fungible, but maybe they're not, So, that was just a curiosity question, and I don't want anybody out in the public to think, I'm saying you need to support if the revenue is mostly generated from one over the other. You've got to keep the whole facility at a certain level to maintain it and, you know, make it work the way it has been working, which has been great.
I also want to put out there that I may need to moderate my behavior in these discussions, in the sense that you folks are doing exactly what we need. You're relying upon a public body meeting that's transparent and having excellent conversations. I'm merely suggesting on the data points, I would expect as a bureaucrat, right, that it's always going to lead to that question, and I don't fear that question. The question is, what are we going to prioritize?
Right.
It's a great question. It is a community cultural question of what do we prioritize one over the other. And if I can turn it back around to the CPC question, just as I sit here and having served in this town when I was mercifully a civilian on the Community Preservation Committee, it may be that the committee in years past was relying on there is Seaport Council, and both Governors Baker and Healy have really, I think, invested in that, whereas there may not be a similar one for other recreational uses.
Right.
But the question is still a great question, and it's a great conversation to continue to have.
Right.
It may be that we should pursue CPC, and let's fight the good fight.
Right. I mean, when you look at, you know, sorry, John, you've got some big projects on here, right? Like,
do.
it's a big, they're big numbers, so,
Sure.
you know, you gotta figure out all your sources of funds,
Amen.
right?
Yep.
Next.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Dave.
you have to excuse my ignorance, okay, because I know nothing about marine operations. I'm not a boat person. But the application calls for a fiscal '28 project for the construction of the new north and east bulkheads. What's a bulkhead?
Oh, you missed the tour last year, Dan. I now know what a bulkhead
Me
is.
too.
I don't,
Oh, you missed the tour.
and I've been on tours.
So the bulkhead is what essentially supports the land that abuts the waterway. So we currently have about 500 linear feet of north bulkhead that goes right alongside the road. As you drive down that front road of the marina, you have a large bulkhead that's driven down into the seabed that supports, you know,
So this is where the slips are
this is where the slips are, correct.
and the docks?
So you have a gangway to go out to the east and west docks, and that gangway sits on that bulkhead and goes out to the docks. And that bulkhead goes the whole length of the harbor. We've got a north bulkhead that supports, you know, where the building and the land is, where the road is. And then we also have an east bulkhead where our offloading area is. And it's a lot of area.
Similar to a retaining wall, I guess.
It's very similar
Very
to
similar.
So this would increase your capacity?
No.
Nope,
No.
it would not.
Would it maintain capacity?
It would maintain
Okay.
what we have.
Because the request talks about construction of new north and east bulkheads. To me, that means there's nothing there now, and you're gonna construct a bulkhead.
So we're gonna drive a new bulkhead in front of the existing, new bulkhead sheets. It's not a repair job. We're putting new bulkhead sheets
Okay,
to support what's there now.
okay.
Got it? So they're not ripping out the old, they're just putting a Band-Aid on top.
And learning from Chatham, correct?
Excuse me?
And learning from Chatham's experience?
Well, yeah, I mean, Chatham, they did very similar. That's correct. And they had some issues. But it's a big project, no doubt.
Very big project, yeah.
That's are we on the bulkhead?
So if I go FY '26, just to cover those, you know, again, I separated the engineering and permitting of that bulkhead project.
Right.
I'm looking for the funding for the design and permitting part of that in FY '26 with the construction in '28.
That's all.
And then Harbor Master replacement truck, you know, I know Martha, you're gonna tell me
I know,
that,
it
that
doesn't seem
number's
like
way low, and so.
That's what I paid for my Honda CRV.
I know, I got you. So, let me just tell you my way of thinking. I was, I figured it'd gonna be a $50,000 truck, and I was gonna get at least 8,000 for my trade-in, so that's why I have that number. I can certainly boost it. But that's the line of thinking from my perspective.
And if I may, we would build it on the gross cost, recognizing that we may have a trade-in. So we would
Okay.
want it to be the higher
Okay.
number,
And I can make
and
that
to acknowledge the trade-in potential.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't need a big fan, I need to be able to haul boats out.
Okay.
And then the Allen Harbor Jetty project, the permitting and engineering design, that's pretty much done. We're finishing up some of the permitting on that. This is a project that went in front of the Board of Selectmen. They have essentially in concept approved the proposed design for repairing the Allen Harbor West Jetty. And so that's a project that I've been seeking some funding support for. Seaport is, it's hard to find grant opportunities to replace jetties, is what I've learned. It's not something that Seaport gets involved with. There's a sea and a seawall and dam state program that I thought that I was directed to. They said, no, we don't support jetty repair with grant funding. So I'm finding a difficult to find a source, but that project is something that has been on our capital project for many years. We'll be in a position to do this should we,
In fairness to you, John, and Dan and the members of the committee who are not voters.
Yeah.
And somehow, he's from New York, I'm from Jersey, so we're both on the same car here, trying to drive and understand what's happening. In an off time for us, and I'm not saying now, it would help if you could help us appreciate what this town has in terms of marine-oriented assets. I'm gonna call it that. Whether it's a bulkhead, a jetty, whatever you walk on, all that stuff, that you know the words, and we would just say, I drive my car, I walk down 3 steps, and I walk out this platform and I jump on a boat. That's Jersey for saying, I got a boat.
Right.
Okay? So, you agree, Dan, that's sort of where we are. And that sort of goes back to and maybe we need to put you on our bus trip,
Yeah.
where we drive and you can explain, that's this.
I think the value would be to take not a bus trip, but a boat ride.
It's very,
And I think,
Well-
and I'm all serious, because you really need to see it from the water. You need to
Yes,
see
yes.
the
I
impacts of
understand,
that
but
failed
we
jetty.
got a bus going past your house, and we're gonna stop there, and maybe you can just explain, this is this, this is this.
Well, you gonna get seasick? Is that why you don't wanna go on the boat?
I'm Portuguese,
I mean, come
we're
on.
men of the same.
we'll get him on a boat, we'll get him on a boat. 'cause
I'm
you can
kidding
sit
with
from
I
the
think
boat.
what we need to
Whatever,
do,
absolutely.
okay, and also, while we're in that vein, Mark has a question that when we drive past and go past the building, Mark, would you like to bring up your question about the generator?
All right, but first, John, the Allen Harbor Jetty, is that affecting the private property of Butter as well?
Well, I'm sure, I don't know when you say affects them, it's not going to include what is their part of the timber bulkhead that they have in front of their property. So we have documentation that shows essentially the extent of what the jetty, where it starts and stops. And so that's what we're covering.
Yeah, because I see the berm or the sand dunes behind it all falling in, and I just was wondering if you'd have an issue with that private property owner.
They're very interested in what we're doing,
Okay.
I will say that.
Yes, they would be.
And, excuse me, just for a sec,
Sorry.
please. Have you received a letter from the Belmont Condominium Trust
So,
about their jetty?
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna ask, we're talking about a fiscal year '24 project. not a fiscal year '25. The comments that are being raised have been raised before. The town, through the Select Board Administration and Harbor Master, are actively responding to inquiries on the Allen Harbor project. John, did I say that right?
On the Wixon Dock project
No,
is one
Wixon
of
is
the
that,
things,
yeah.
is one of the, but, and Mark is asking about the Herring River Jetty, which we got,
Okay.
you got, that you're responding to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not delving into, there are ongoing constituent complaints and issues.
Okay, but
and
you're
the ta-
addressing.
And the town's addressing it,
You're
correct.
addressing Mark's
Yeah,
question.
I just want to make sure we don't delve into a field
Okay.
we shouldn't.
Do it in the right
Okay.
place.
Mark, you're good with that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you received it, so that's
Okay.
good. And,
Now, secondly,
yeah, the other thing, John, is, would it be possible on the generator to get a copy of the engineer's report? 200,000, I was in the trades for a while, I just would like somebody to check on the load, just to see it, because as I said, $200,000.
this does not appear on yours.
That's correct. I think
That's facilities.
that request needs to come to Sean Limby. He's the one who's leading the
Okay, so
purchase of the generator.
Yeah, so the general answer is, if it's publicly available, we can discuss it and we can review it. I do not want, again, you folks, your role is to advise and assist me in building a capital plan. We all go as a group to the FinCom and, Finance Committee and Select Board. If that's a level of, I think you said earlier, Mr. Chairman, granularity probably, I'm a little bit leery to get there in a public venue. So if we're doing a procurement, and we've heard our facilities maintenance director say that he's met all the legal obligations under that, that's one thing. I'm going to rely upon my subject matter experts, for better, for worse, but in all these instances, I know it's for the better. So if there's a request for a deeper dive into a procurement, the answer is perhaps. I say perhaps because if it's a procurement, it ends with the Select Board. Either me reporting a contract of $75,000 or less, and I open that up for inquiry from either the board or the public. If it's greater than 75,000, the question will come before the board, and those questions are better addressed at that level.
if you sort of, if we, I'm going to say we are asking. It's in line with the same type of question that Martha asked about the price of a pickup truck. And she just bought her own vehicle and thinking that a pickup truck on paper was overstated, okay? So the question that we're going through an exercise, and we have a gentleman that has knowledge of a field that impacts the town, and we have gone through this prior to your being here, where we've had people on the Capitol, like for roofing. We've had a gentleman who was in the commercial roofing business, who also took a look at it to see if, in fact, the quote was legitimately in the ballpark.
Sure.
So we're asking, basically, pickup trucks are sort of out of whack. We have a gentleman that says, can I look at whatever that was and see if it's ballpark?
Sure.
So I don't think,
And I don't intend to get into an argument
no, I don't.
or any disagreement, and we can take it offline. But I have to respond where whatever actions were done in years past, I think it's fair to say that there have been two different administrators, the predecessor and myself. And that part of what I've been dealing with in the years that I've been in this role is re-energizing and enhancing and making better the procurement process. So as the chief procurement officer for the town, I have to make standards. To your question earlier about regulatory, I am regulated directly by the Inspector General, not just the board or anybody here, but anything that we do on procurement. I'm never going to say no to expert input or analysis. But with all due respect, the gentleman who's questioning is going to be a decision maker. It's not just one of the five of you. We've got two representatives from the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is going to have a chance to weigh in with the Select Board.
Well, let me,
If I could finish real
Sure.
quick, but the Select Board is then going to direct me. And that article if it becomes one, and the funding of that is going to be related to a procurement. There may be a better time to have those discussions, because I don't want to relive what we went through the last 2 years. I think the town, through our council, through the select board, through the moderator, has refined what we're doing. I'm relying upon my role under Chapter 4 and your role under Chapter 9. It's my plan and budget, and I have to own it and create it. I absolutely want to continue these discussions and will, because it's necessary for everybody, and that's the role that you play. But we've got several more projects, several more folks, and there's several more months of discussion. If someone's asking, can they analyze a procurement to a certain level, the answer may be no, because I have to meet the standards of the select board and the standards of the inspector general.
Okay, so
So I'm
we
not
can-
saying no now, but I think it's a better conversation to have offline. Unless the commentary is, the subject matter expert facilities manager has made a recommendation regarding a generator at the harbor. That's not the harbor master's bailiwick.
Okay.
He's the advocate for that. The facilities maintenance director is the one applying for it, and I'm the one who has to do it and support it.
Okay, so, and I 100% agree. The question still remains, is there any way for Mark to get an answer?
Yes, there's always a way for someone to get an
To
answer.
talk to you?
Correct.
Directly? As
Correct.
a finance rep or capital outlay?
So you're talking to a former town clerk who will tell you that despite how folks say it, you cannot remove the distinction. Each of you are members of the capital outlay,
Okay,
whether you come from any other. You
Okay.
can't divest yourself. You can't say, I'm going to be a taxpayer, but now I'm going to be, it's all wrapped together. So that individual, those individuals, if I may, have an additional and stronger role.
okay.
So it would be Joe talking to Mark offline.
Mark, you got it?
I got it.
Okay, I tried. I thought, go ahead.
Quick question, clarification. The request states that the GE estimate is attached, but I don't think it is.
Okay, I have it attached in my sheets that I can give you a copy. Well, you, Joe.
Absolutely.
I can give a copy. Yes.
Thank you, Dan. So there's a reference to GEI, being GEI consultants. We did the estimate. It's public information. We'll have that included as well.
You're welcome.
Ian?
One point of clarification, having been the beneficiary of the field trip, you're saying the west jetty only?
Correct.
So we're not doing the east jetty, which is also in poor repair, correct?
I mean, it's functioning fine,
Okay, so the west jetty is taking the most of the abuse right now.
and that's the one, you know, that essentially our predominant winds are from the southwest, and so
Right,
it's porous, and therefore we're having to dredge every year because,
right, but if we all went out there, we'd see both, and I'm just clarifying, we're talking about the
Right.
west jetty.
correct.
Thank you for that.
So are we at the 42,000?
We've done that one.
We've done that one.
Okay.
We've done the engineering.
So we're done.
We're done.
We're
We're
service
done.
enhanced.
You're done.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
I
Thank
think I
you.
already complimented you as well, right? All right.
Yeah, please, that's
I
good,
wanna make
thank
sure.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thanks so
Generate
much.
revenue.
And we'll probably stop at your place, whatever day we're going, next week or the week after?
Next,
We have to talk about that at the end.
Yeah, well,
Next
which
week,
one
then.
let you know that, coffee, donuts are accepted.
I'll make sure we have them ready for you.
You need to take them out on the water
and a
and push them
boat,
over,
and
right?
a boat. There are no questions
I didn't
once you're
say
out
that
on
to
the
the
water.
police officers in
Yes,
the room.
yes.
That wasn't a threat.
Yep, yep. Thank you, Mr.
Strong
Chairman. Thank you,
suggestion.
members. Thank you, Harbor Master.
Thank you.
Do you want me to give?
We'll connect offline. Yep, thank you.
IT,
So yes, next would be our Director of Information Technologies, Sarah Eaton. And, well, I think we've talked about it before. In years past, there really wasn't capital. And that's one of the major changes that I've made through administration on both procurement and capital. Computers, infrastructure, technology, all of that is absolutely capital. And the director to my right has done a phenomenal job in a short period of time, bringing us almost fully into the 21st century. But I'm thrilled to have Sarah Eden join us this morning and to walk through her application. So we have the plan and the form there if you need that. Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to you all and turn it over to our director.
So for the FY '25 year, it's continuing with what started this year of our upgrades of technology and bringing us, so furthering upgrading internally, like the Wi-Fi, the network cables, internet connections to the various buildings along that line.
Is this all network oriented, or is there software upgrades? Is there hardware upgrades?
Software and hardware upgrades, yeah, it's like over-encompassing.
Okay. Are you aware, and I guess it's been on TV, that there's now an effort to disregard the efforts of IT and actually on the Cape, and go back and help the Cape in terms of transportation, fix the bridges, stuff like that, rather than IT? Is that an effort or anything that you've heard of?
I have not heard that yet.
There are television commercials now,
Seriously?
where the dollars should be driven to help Cape Cod and not infrastructure per se. So, as long as we know that, I don't know where the dollars are coming, like Open Cape and stuff like that. Now typically having a more residential use, and trying to compete with the only provided terms of residence.
Mr. Chairman, is that potentially related to the federal funds that were made available
Yes.
on infrastructure, and
Yes.
infrastructure was
Yes,
included in the definition,
yes,
information, okay.
and now they're spinning
Yeah.
it.
Have you heard that? That
I
there's
have
a
not heard,
decision?
no, I haven't heard that recent. I know, I've been participating in the BEAD workshops and webinars regarding the federal funding
We're
for.
allergic to acronyms. Is that an acronym?
It's an acronym and I don't know.
Fair enough, all right, well, we'll follow up.
But it's in regards to the federal funding for looking at high-speed internet for residential
Right.
aspects. And I know the state has gotten the funding, and I believe I can't remember if it's the county or the commission that's got the portion from the state for Cape Cod region.
It's the rural piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I have a question. Do we want to put 250,000 in FY '29?
So if I may, in the short term, no, we don't.
Okay.
Meaning, if I remember correctly, our total investment with prior years, plus the million that you see on the plan, we'd be getting to over 1.5 million?
Yeah, I've got last year's
Yeah.
one here.
In other
yeah.
words,
Yeah.
right now, I imagine that that's sufficient, and so I would want that to be a zero in the outlying year. It doesn't mean in '27 or '28, I may have changes, but again,
I saw that.
capital having been only through the operating budget in years past,
Okay.
this
So you're
is a
saying this gets you up to where you need to be?
That's the hope,
at
that's the
that,
hope and
but that'll
expectation. Correct,
potentially
exactly,
change.
yep.
Okay.
And it represents a significant investment by the town and through the town in support of our reinvestment in technology.
In terms of where we are as a standard in technology
Yeah.
versus other towns on the Cape or other towns in Massachusetts, do you have any idea of what quadrant we would fall in?
Well, so I spent 15 years in Orleans, and Orleans was okay with keeping up with technology. And then, so when I came here last year, we were way behind. But now, since we have updated the Munis financial software and the 365 environment, we have now jumped. My old boss had called me asking, okay, now how did you implement 365 and the SharePoint? So we have now kind of jumped past Orleans in that, but there are still areas where we're lacking, like our website, which we're in the process for this fiscal year of upgrading, and implementing the permitting software and just getting us up to speed to provide online services that in this day and age people have come accustomed to
Okay.
going to the internet and being able to do things that they need.
Now, you're applying this to the applications that we need municipally.
Yes.
How does the impact of enriching what the town offers to the residents?
It will help them be able to, sitting at home and they need to file a permit or something, they can do that at home, at night, at convenience to them, and also just being able to find information wherever and whenever they need. And
Okay. The gentleman in the back, FirstNet, are you guys aware of it?
We're aware of Verizon.
So you don't deal with FirstNet,
Only Verizon.
even though it's a nationwide contract for 10 years?
And Verizon has something very similar for public safety.
I was with both of them. I'm concerned only because there are applications from the safety standpoint
Right.
that I assume you're addressing or working with the departments.
yes, yeah, I'm working with the departments to help, address whatever they need, technological or software service.
What department here do you think uses the most or needed the most upgrade to be at a place where, I'll put it in your terms, better than Orleans?
I'm gonna interject and say, administration.
Administration?
Absolutely, and because a lot of the enhancements that we're talking about help me and my team greatly. Migrating to O365 and Teams and relying upon SharePoint, it is changing the way that we do business. Not to sound like a commercial, but it's true. It's helping us be more efficient. It's helping us to ensure that if there's disruptions, for weather or anything else, that we're still connected. To be able to access our network files virtually that are now stored in the cloud is a game changer. Meaning a department head, because we work 24/7 or are accessible if need be, if something happens off hours, either through a town device or their personal devices, we can access that data immediately, where we couldn't do that 2 years ago. Additionally, the support for public safety, not only through the Director of Information Technologies, but we still rely upon both a police department representative in Mark Harris, a fire department representative in Scott Tilsley. They're conversing with Sarah all the time, but we are maintaining our commitment to Hub Tech. So Hub Tech was brought to our attention prior to Sarah joining us. They were able to create an immediate stopgap measure where we were looking at our servers potentially going down and having data lost irrevocably. And so that's what I say when Sarah has brought us well into the 21st century, where for some aspects it is not meant to be humorous. There was one vendor that told me at one point in time that as it related to our data, we were relying upon practices that were prevalent in the 1980s and 1990s. And so this cannot be understated, and the value that Sarah brings cannot be understated. And I need to add, because Sarah may or may not be aware of it, although I may have alluded to it before, I knew what Orleans and other towns were able to do. When I heard that a IT professional from the town of Orleans was interested in being our Director of Information Technologies and happened to be a Harwich resident, well, here she is. So we've added by their subtraction. So for me, where are we now from where we've been? We are trending almost in an immediately upward trajectory, and it's in large part to our director.
So if I can kind of follow up on that, last year there were 3 areas that you spoke about that were sort of under-resourced or needed fixing that really kind of opened my eyes and I was gobsmacked at. But they were sort of the back door that somebody could come in and steal our data, we could have a ransom incident. It was communication between the buildings, and it was the number of extension cords running the town. Those really sort of sent me off my my noggin here. I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. How are we doing with respect to those three areas?
Okay, so in terms of, with the respect to the security, now that we are up on the 365 environment, there's still a few outlying departments that we have to bring their data up. But we now have, Microsoft has the multi-factor authentication, so everybody has to put in a code, and so that has secured that up. HubTech is also, I went through with them about a month ago. We walked through and we did another security assessment and stuff, so then I'll be hopefully getting the report in the next couple of weeks on that. So just to see, and even just in the initial sit down with them from where they did it 2 years ago, the stuff that we have done so far with the 365 upgrade and the Munis upgrade has definitely secured us up on that aspect of things. And communication between the departments, everybody, all buildings are now on Teams or have Teams phones, and then we're just waiting, like within the next week or two, like library and I know police and fire were doing their port overs of their numbers into the Teams environment, so everybody can pick up their phone or headset and call another department head or department member. And then the extension cords, we still have those. So HubTech has done a network assessment. So I had them come in and we walked through the buildings and looked at, so what needed to be upgraded, what equipment may need to be replaced. And so they'll be providing me with a assessment of all the buildings that we walked through. So then that way I can, as part of this plan, go through and like start addressing like the critical buildings first, and then.
And that would be included in this money here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Can I go back to an earlier question as well, because I thought it was a great question about the value statement for the residents and the non-town users, so to speak. Embedded with all of this, or I think it started prior, but we've embedded within that, is upgrading Munis. And again, Munis is a brand name, it's our fund accounting software. But it can be much more than that, and there are other modules that we're migrating out to an employee access. So any of our employees, because we did 365, will now have an identity, meaning an email. They may not have a computer, so somebody that's working in the field, they can come back into their home operation, if you will, use that to log in eventually as we get to that, and see all of their employee information. So health benefits, paycheck, all of that. We're then progressing where I certainly do envision, and I know Sarah shares it, where we can have self-service kiosks, certainly in town hall and in other locations, where those folks who are tech savvy and comfortable can either do it remotely or come in and rely upon a kiosk for information. That's not to reduce staff per se, because we still need the back-end processing, but it's to make ease of use. So we will be doing far more for the residents as well, and they'll see those changes. And last but not least, because of last year's funding, Sarah is knee-deep in the website upgrade and reimagining, revisioning, or changing the scope of it.
Making it better.
Yeah.
Looks better, that's what I mean
Yeah,
to say.
not just a design, not just like a fresh design of the website, but it's a whole new platform. It's still with Civic Plus, but it's their platform called Evolve, which will be able to allow us to integrate various things and make the town website be like the central hub of information for the residents.
So I have one more question, and we talked about this last year when, you put together your original plan. I said, that's a lot of work for one person. Are we still, that's a lot of work, and it's impressive how much she's done in a year, so congratulations. But is one person enough in the IT department?
No, one person's not enough. Yes, it is impressive, and yes, it's still a need. However, to be clear about it, Sarah has the role of Director of Information Technology, so she manages the Barnstable County IT,
Okay.
help desk, and other support. So those folks work for her through that contract, as does HubTech, as does any vendor relationship. So in the short term, because I am allergic to single-person departments,
Right.
it's inefficient and not effective at all. But in the meantime, we in administration made sure she was supported with those vendor resources.
So when I watched the town, select board meeting and you talked about that contract, I think that point wasn't raised and that would have been
Correct.
helpful to understand, so.
And that's why I'll get another crack at the apple on
Yeah.
Monday night.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark, then me.
Sarah, do you have the software available now for a town-wide newsletter?
We're going to be relying upon the website upgrade vendor Civic Plus to do that.
And do you know when that will be?
We are looking at a June go live, as Civic Plus calls it, for the new website. I had a meeting yesterday with Civic Plus. We're right in the initial stages, so, and the next week's like the design discovery. And come February is when they'll start pulling the data from our current website and building the new website with the information. So between now and February, I'll have to work with departments to help them kind of clean up their websites, because as time goes on, and this was the same in Orleans because I was in charge of the redesign for the website in Orleans. And what it is, as time goes on, pages just kind of get left on that are outdated and stuff. So that's kind of will be like the initiative between now and February, is to, like, just to help the departments, okay, like what's important, what do you need on it, and then just kind of taking off any old information that's outdated and doesn't need to be on there. So when we go over it, as clean as possible to the new website with the correct information.
My turn.
I do have a follow-up at some point, though, for Mr. Kelleher on this question. Former board member Mary Anderson did not forget about you. It's on my list, and what we're relying upon is through SharePoint. So when we migrated to O365, there are a number of channels, as they call it, where I'll be able to create, and I'm working on both intra and external documentation. Meaning we'll be able to roll out newsletters for employees, newsletter for lack of a better word. And for the external, it would be both digital and potentially print copy. But we have the software, we're developing the software presently to do that. So it may not require an additional resource, we may have the tools right now.
So if we decided to get a town-wide newsletter, when would that be possible, do you think?
So we're tying it to the migration over to SharePoint, we're tying it to the website. These are fiscal year ~24 projects that we're working to complete. On the website upgrade into that topic, Sarah and I had already talked about, she may be doing an update, informal update at town meeting to let folks know that the website's changing and some of the things they can look forward to. That's why we wanted to keep on the June launch. So we want to tell people in advance before we launch.
So perhaps June.
Correct, that's the target.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Wait a minute, I gotta ask a question. Your projects that you're working on are internal, and they affect external in terms of residents of Harwich.
Mm-hmm.
I would say of the 12,000 and change residents of Harwich, we have a little aged population. Not everyone has a computer. Not everyone knows, if they have one, how to use it. Not everyone has an iPad, but most people use an iPad, and if they're not have the latest update on the iPad, you can't access a lot of websites. I would suggest that your department and maybe administration think of perhaps during the winter that you have 2 or 3 nights dedicated to the residents of Harwich to come in and say, this is what's happening in technology, and this is how you're going to access it. And we're going to make it real easy for you. We're going to have a kiosk like you're going to McDonald's, and you're going to pick something, and you're going to be able to read it and print it. It's got to be really easy, okay? We're talking in terms of, consultants doing this, consultants doing that. There's going to be software for that. We're integrating with the police. We're integrating with fire. We're integrating with the Board of Education. Employees will be able to access, their benefits. Employees be access whatever. What I don't hear is there's not been a lot of thought. Maybe I'm missing it, okay? Because we only have like 20 minutes. I need to see an effort directed towards the residents of Harwich and how we're helping them move into the future,
Certainly.
okay?
That's less the director of IT, more on our community center director, Carolyn Carey, our library director, Ginny Hewitt,
But the subject matter's coming here.
and I get that, but what you're talking about is an operating budget effort. If we're going to be do training and all that, it comes under the operating budget.
Well,
It's the user experience.
Again, not arguing, agree.
yeah, I just
But-
think it's a necessary
Sure.
evil that has to be.
Yeah, I'm conditioned that, when statements are made, people will take that as policy or fact. What I heard is that we need to do, the town needs to reach out to users of technology that may need resources. We have programs in place, we can expand programs, and it wouldn't just be, or probably wouldn't be through the director of IT, but other programs, but point well taken.
It's almost the same as wastewater.
Mhm.
We have an open evening about discussing wastewater, just update on,
There is an element of civic or community engagement. There's resources or applications for those as well. Sarah and I have talked about it. I was trying to shoehorn it in about a year ago for the benefit of the local comprehensive plan and the local planning committee, but that's another resource that we can add to it.
okay. Is that it? We're good? Nope.
You promised Dan.
Yes.
Just curious, have you ever looked into the feasibility of having student interns come and help assist you in?
I'm glad you asked. So, my daughter's in 7th grade, and we participated in the Cape Cod Tech Night, so she could take a look at it. And we went into the information technology department. I connected with one of the teachers there talking about how they do a co-op. I have mentioned it to Joe. He gave me the blessings to go ahead and pursue that, so I will be reaching out to the teachers to set that up, to have students do co-ops.
Very good.
And we presently we have some student interns through Monomoy school system as well, and I know that the community center director has some programs regarding technology where the students are the teachers,
Great.
rightfully so.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Thank you.
That always helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your work, yeah.
Keep it up.
Spectacular.
Great
Yeah,
progress.
Amazing.
Mr. Chairman, a topic and two gentlemen that need no introduction. However, I'm still going to introduce them. So next for our police department, we have our chief, David Gilmet, and our deputy chief, Kevin Considine. Rank has
And
the
the two
privilege.
gentlemen in the back, the lieutenants don't get the,
By our lieutenant corps,
they
absolutely.
don't travel by themselves.
We-
They got racks.
Listen, absolutely, they got a crew, and yes, we are joined by the Lieutenants Hutton and Goshgarian behind me. Again, I'll say great things about my colleagues, less so about my peer, Chief Gilmet, because we work together, he doesn't work for me. Truly, both the chief and the deputy chief, again, the town of Harwich is incredibly fortunate and well-served to have these gentlemen, the gentleman behind me, and all the men and women in public safety in a job that I think all of us recognize. Many of us wouldn't do it, that's why we don't do it. So certainly thank them for all of that, and they've got a very well-defined capital plan. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd love to turn it over to our police chief and our deputy for them to present the capital.
Thanks for the kind words, Joe.
My pleasure.
Deputy Chief Considine has done all of the legwork on the capital plan, so I'm going to pass the microphone off to him and
he's
just sit
lost
here and
weight,
look pretty.
Wow, that was quick. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Chief. Thanks to the committee for having us today and answering any questions. As you'll see in our plan, the big items are the cruisers, and I think we've answered all the vehicle questions
I
today,
think we
so I probably move.
He
Oh,
said,
sure.
Did you put enough money in the budget for the vehicles?
I think you'll like my figures.
They went up, right.
So as a placeholder, our vehicles are a little bit different. They're used a lot, more than any other department. So, which creates a little difficulty in forecasting and answering questions for multiple years out, because we don't know what years or miles really look like. However, we put a placeholder, for 25, we're asking for 3. And we've put that placeholder out to 29 for 3 cruisers. For 25, we're looking at replacing, most likely look at replacing vehicles with, right now, as of today, with 125,000, 140,000, 142,000. And I mentioned this last year, what got us in this position, and we'll probably be saying for another year or two, is COVID. We went for a number of years with 1 vehicle and 0 vehicles. So we're still catching up, unfortunately. The other aspect of that, which we talked about today, was the supply chain and the vehicles. They're running out of vehicles, they're running out of police cruisers. I have 3 that we're working on for this current year, 24, and they can't, and I reserve those the day after town meeting. Thank goodness, because they wouldn't have them right now on the lot. So that's what we're looking at, vehicles, so I figured we'd start there with any questions.
And these were all in the operating budget prior to this, correct?
They've bounced
They've
back and
bounced,
forth,
right,
but
right, right.
they're, for the first year in a long time, you're
They're
seeing
here,
paperwork
which
on them.
is where I think they should be, but that's me.
Yes.
Amen to that. Chief,
Yeah.
did you have any thoughts on that as well?
Yes, they have bounced back and forth.
You know what, let's give it a shot, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
You need them,
better place.
they're there.
And it meets the
And the
definitions.
question of,
Yep.
is it a capital item? Yes.
Yes.
Is it an expense item? Yes. It happens to be here, we'll live with it. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine.
So those top numbers are the cruiser numbers that you see from 25 to 29. So, moving on, for 25, that 51,000, as well as 26, the 51,000,
Yeah.
that's a change. That was approved on the plan. That's our TASER replacement program, which is beginning this year. That price, and again, as we talked about this meeting, we take a deep dive the year prior and really hone in on our estimates and our what we're looking at. So the original cost was, on the plan, was 56,115. That is now 50,722.89, so 51,000. So we're very happy that went down, and that went down as a result of, we just changed the tasers, we're going with the new tasers. We're not going with the brand new ones. We never like to do that. We're going with the older model behind that. The new ones are having some issues.
Okay,
Oh,
new,
got it.
older model.
Yep. So that reflects just the cost savings for that.
And the 18,000, is that part of the tasers? It's just the
So
tail
in
end?
27, are you looking
Yeah.
at? So in 27, that 18 is no change in price. That's been on the plan. That is for our ballistic helmets and our cruisers.
Okay.
There's no change on that. The 18 and 28, and the town administrator, I have to work on this. This was brought up last year, and this was all-terrain vehicles, and the discussion was the under 50,000. So that's going to be a discussion that we're going to have.
You lost me on that.
Yeah,
You got 18,000 there. Is that part of the bigger numbers above? or
No,
what is
that's a
it?
separate item.
What is it?
And
All-terrain vehicles.
I was gonna also-
ATVs, all-terrain
ATV.
vehicles.
I was also gonna offer that
Well,
some of
that's
these
2.
might be Scrivener's errors.
That's
Could I carry over something that
Oh,
shouldn't
there are
have
2 of them?
in either of
instead
those
of one?
categories?
that 18. So we're taking
which one?
the
This one up
second
here?
18.
So is that the kind of vehicle that I see on Route 6, the kids running?
Correct,
One of those?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
they're
So you
9
can
grand.
run after the kids? No.
We don't run after the kids, but we do proactive patrols regularly with those vehicles.
Okay.
So,
And search team.
Yep.
And
Oh, sir.
I just want to put it, because again, I think there was an error on my part. If I'm hearing everything correctly, the line that says other vehicles related equipment, that reference in fiscal year 2028 to 18,000 is incorrect and will be removed.
correct,
The
Okay,
18,000 in fiscal year 27 for equipment will remain?
correct.
that's
Okay,
that one.
thank you.
Sorry, I'm not following that,
So
Joe.
then we
Can
took
you-
out,
Joe, can you take that back slowly?
Sure.
Yeah.
18 and
If
28.
you're looking at second line down, other
Right.
vehicles / related equipment,
Right,
fiscal year 28, that 18,000 is going to be deleted, changed to 0.
okay.
In fact, that line's going to go away because there's nothing in the plan
got it.
for the 5 years.
And where's the ATV?
It
I
states
thought
right
that was
here,
the
27.
ATV.
You just talked about 2 ATVs.
Yep. I was pausing, so now the next line, you have equipment replacements, 51,000, 51,000, and the deputy has just said, if I've heard correctly, 18,000, the equipment being replaced is the ATV.
Oh, I thought that was for the helmets.
He said
So
helmets.
the 18 and 27 is staying, that's the helmet.
The helmet, sorry, my
The
bad.
18 and 28 is disappearing.
And then where is the ATV then? I just lost.
Those are what's
It's under 50.
in 28,
That would have been the 18.
18,000.
You're saying keeping it?
We're deleting it. It was deleted last year, it was just added by accident this year onto this plan.
How do you get them then?
We will be
Not as a
working within
capital.
we will be working future years out in capital.
Okay, I think we're,
I think the best thing, given the time constraints we have, is I can update the plan. Version 4 will show the
still
zeros.
gonna use it, you still need ATVs
Future years out, we're not.
beyond this plan.
Correct,
Gotcha.
correct.
Got it.
Okay,
That answers
okay,
the question.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can use some of the golf carts that the golf course has extra.
We have two right now, which are in really good shape, and we're pushing those out.
Perfect.
But that you use to go to your car.
Yeah.
And come back. Okay. Okay, so then we're on equipment replacement. Those are the vests and the hats. What is the difference between the equipment replacement 515118 and the 70 for protective vests?
So in 29, the 70 is the next 5 years. We replace our bulletproof vests every 5 years. That is the next time we'll be replacing the vests.
And that handout was given to us in the very first meeting, the 70.
I believe the October 18th meeting, correct.
Got it, thank you.
And I just want to point out, and again, I'll be working with Joe on this one, the one remaining item for 29 that's not on the plan that we do need to add, that's missing, is the first year of the next TASER replacement plan. So just like an ambulance plan, they have every other year, we have every 5 years for vests and TASERs.
Right.
So in 29, the first payment will be roughly around $73,000.
So
category?
we're gonna write in tasers.
Taser has to go
Perfect.
under other.
So under equipment replacement, 515118, 0, and then
73,
Thank you.
73
correct.
tasers.
You and I are
Question?
going to have a one-on-one on forms.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, question? So having learned all about how these things have to be replaced every 5 years, which, why didn't I get into this business? I'm not quite sure, but how much are tasers used?
It's hard to say.
As infrequently as possible.
Correct, right.
Right, so
It's a tool, it's a valuable tool that we just need to have. And we hope never to use them,
hope never to use them, and they have this 5-year lifespan,
correct.
and they're just, okay.
So
they're just
with the
required.
tasers, the technology, just like we just talked with technology, is
changing.
constantly changing. They they're electric. They're out in water, they're on the belts, sand, beaches.
Okay,
They, even if they're not used, they get worn
Wear.
and wear.
where, okay.
punches too?
Yeah, well, hopefully not.
I got a question. Who pays, if you get a new officer, who pays for the gun?
That is it. We have an initial issue line item in our operating budget,
Okay.
and all that's in there.
And are
Vest,
guns replaced over time?
yes.
What's the life cycle of a gun? The pistol you would be carrying, not the
we've
rifle
learned
you
about
carry,
tasers.
you put in the car.
You know, it's interesting, you asked that, Mr. Chairman, because I was thinking that in the back of the room. I would say maybe within the next 10 years, we'd be looking at a full replacement of department sidearms because we're moving into an era where a red dot sight on a pistol is going to be like standard. And all of our pistols right now, save for the ones, only a few, have iron sights. So a red dot is a,
You
know,
do that in layman's terms?
a red dot sight is like an electronic optic that you look through a little piece of glass sitting on top of the frame of the pistol, and it puts a dot, and the bullet goes where the dot is. It's not a laser sight. You just see the dot. It doesn't appear on your target.
Okay.
And it makes accuracy, it increases accuracy exponentially. It's like cheating. So we're probably going to be looking at, and that would be all new firearms and then all new holsters. So that would definitely be a capital item. We haven't really discussed it, but I would say definitely on the horizon within the next 10 years.
Okay. Is that also on a schedule, I'm assuming?
That is.
Okay. Is there any use or any expense or capital item in regard to the shooting range?
That's all covered under our operating budget with,
Okay.
with the ammunition, equipment, cleaning supplies.
Okay, so that's covered,
Correct.
okay. Members?
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Surely.
I waited to see what was going to happen. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to acknowledge our police chief, David Gilmet, who has announced his retirement. I can't say, well, you may think I don't say enough, right? I was going to say, I can't say enough good things, but truly recognizing the stewardship that Chief Gilmet has provided. Again, he was what I like to refer to as a pre-existing condition for me. He started before I did, but I knew immediately. We have just a solid leader, and our men and women in police, I can't imagine there's a worse time to be in that profession. And despite all of the social and cultural upheavals that have happened, Chief David Gilmet, for at least by me, and hopefully everybody in the town, will never be forgotten for his leadership back in 2020, Chief, when we had the townwide march. I've been around in government for a long time. I've never seen a greater example of leadership and courage and sympathy and support. And I'm going to put on the record right now, Chief, I'm going to miss you. But we wish you and Jean and the family, he deserves every happiness, and he has chosen his time, and God bless.
Congratulations.
Thank you, yeah.
Can you share with us how many years of service you have?
Yeah, I've been a police officer for 36 years right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So-
you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't want to see you directing traffic at one of these, you know.
Not a chance.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Not
no
a-
way for him to do that.
Not a chance, but thank you, Joe. Much appreciated.
They're all over the town. Thank you, gentlemen. And
Okay.
gentlemen, thanks for the backup. We needed you.
Thanks for having my sixth. So, Mr. Chairman, last but by no means least, we are joined by truly people that don't work for me at all, and that's a good thing for everything. So we're going to have Dr. Carpenter, our Superintendent of Schools for the Monomoy Regional School District, and Michael McMillan, Business Manager for the district as well. And again, I know folks that have been returning to the committee know that given how the towns of Harwich and Chatham have collaboratively worked through the school district, and we've updated our assessment formula. You know, we are now in the second year, really, of where the town of Harwich owns the responsibility of capital needs for the Harwich Elementary School completely, as does the town of Chatham for the Chatham Elementary School. And so these gentlemen are here to talk us through the capital needs of the elementary school for the next 5 years. I would just start out by saying that the doctor, the business manager, and I met with Kathleen Barrett, our finance director, and the first year, or the appropriation for fiscal year '25, this will be embedded in our assessment that the district gives us. So we're going to roll that into the operating budget that we do for Monomoy. So that part has a funding source that all parties have agreed to.
Sorry, I don't think I understand that. You mean you're able to do that?
Correct, yeah.
Just for this year, that year?
No, generally speaking, we're able to do it depending upon certain circumstances. If I were left to find a funding source, I would rely upon free cash. This is an example where it is allowed under state regulations, I think, where the capital needs for Harwich Elementary will be subsumed by the town of Harwich assessment from the school district. I believe we did exactly that last year as well. Yep. So when you look at Article 5, which is what it typically is, you'll see a line that says Harwich Elementary Capital. So
But
the-
it's not shared with Chatham, right? It's just
for the.
Right,
You're
Our-
adding it to
our
the
article-
assessment, and then you're saying it goes
So-
back to Harwich.
It comes
Our
through.
Article 5 is our Article 5. It's the town of Harwich appropriating our assessment obligations. Chatham will do the same thing on their end. Ours will look about 75%, wink, wink, more than Chatham's, except for Harwich Elementary is 100% on us. Point I'm trying to make inelegantly is the funding source for the fiscal year '25 ask will be part of the Harwich assessment that will appear in the article for that
Okay.
appropriation.
It's just a matter of where it gets put in the warrant.
Correct.
It doesn't change what we pay.
Correct.
Or how it's covered.
Yep, and
Okay.
last but not least, I will absolutely say nice things about the two gentlemen to my right, because they've earned it, they deserve it.
Except for the rim.
And because I gotta talk nice, we're on camera. No, truly, Dr. Carpenter and I, he's been a great partner and a great resource for me on many levels. And as a parent of two children in the system, I know our system is exceptional. It's very well run, and we're very well run. That certainly is kudos to the school committee, but also to the leadership of Dr. Carpenter and his team. And no less of a member of the team is the business manager who we're really going to put through his paces this morning. Thank
So-
you, gentlemen.
May I just, to clear up in my brain, if we're being assessed, are we, is it deducted, this payment, these payments out of Harwich? In other words, we're assessed $100,000. And the elementary school is 50,000. Is that 50 deducted from the 100 and we only pay on the assessment?
I think the way I'd want to say it, and I wish I had the article from last year, you'll have in the warrant the article related to the Harwich assessment for the Monmore Regional School
Which
District.
is a dollar value.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's an total estimated cost.
Right.
And then below that will be a table. And that table will talk about, I think, debt obligation, operations.
And transportation.
Transportation, and the Harwich Elementary School. So you'll see the various costs. Those will all tie back. They are all part of the equation for the final number.
So when we approve this, and the town is going to approve the capital budget, the Harwich Elementary School will be in the capital budget, or it will be in that warrant number?
So remember that the capital budget is several appropriating articles. The appropriating article for this is part of it, correct?
That one,
Exactly.
okay, so it's just where it goes in the paperwork.
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay. Before we start, can I just ask a question? What was the year that the elementary school was built, and how many children are we educating in that school roughly?
I can,
The
I
exact
have the, yeah.
It just helps
I
to
think
know how
I'm
old
just
the
looking up
building
the
is
date
when
it
you're
was
thinking
built.
about this.
Yeah. So it was built in 1940, and then there was a major renovation done in 2003.
And about how many children?
Wait for it. That's a different page.
That's a
Keeping you on
different
your
spreadsheet,
toes.
right?
So right now, we have, let's see, 464 students as of October 1st.
Thank you.
Continue, gentlemen.
So I should say Harwich Elementary, and we can thank Town Harwich, is in great condition for its age and the amount of use it gets. Both, I think the town did a good job before we took over, and kudos to our custodials and facilities team who've done a great job. I don't know if you've ever been in there, but it doesn't look like it was built in
No,
1940.
that might be a place
So
we could go.
we're very pleased, and that's why you'd see there are some items over the next few years, but there's not a load of items. And the priority for us right now, in terms of big capital items, are more district level, where we have the middle school needs a lot of work, needs a new roof, needs new siding, new boilers. So that's kind of our focus on those big projects over the next few years. In terms of next year, we have a number of rooftop units that support our HVAC system at Harwich. One of them failed last year, mid-year, that we had to kind of replace. And so knowing that they're on their last legs, we want to replace we have 3 more that we need to replace. We want to replace 2 of them, which are in critical need. Next year, it costs us about $60,000 to do one, so that's why we're asking.
So that
120 to do
120 is for two?
Two, yeah.
Okay.
Two items.
And then do you want me to go through the other items? that are
Yes,
on the
please.
list?
Go
All right.
across, yeah, please.
So, I just need to refresh my own memory. What do we have? So,
This is what they have in front of them.
so make sure I
Yep.
see it. So we have
65.
two boilers, the rooftop units next year, we have nothing the year after. And then, sorry, just bear with me. 27, so we have nothing, so if the boilers, the rooftop units next year, nothing the year after. FY3 includes, sorry, in 27, I'm struggling to
Third
find
year
my
of the-
numbers,
third
yeah.
year of the plan.
Third year is the, we're hoping to replace the security alarm system, which is well past its useful life, and wireless access points for those, I don't think they are, so I'm not sure they're gonna meet your threshold capital, because they're only 35,000, I can't remember.
450.
That will meet
So,
your capital definition.
What I would say here is there is a $65,000 capital need
Yeah,
of several projects in
Right.
that year. So the total number of projects or procurements meets the threshold. The capital program that's being funded is called Harwich Elementary School.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense. And then the following year, that $54,000 is for network switches. So that's, as part of, just your conversation earlier with your IT director,
Right.
technology is so important to us, everything is on our network.
So
Our
your
security system.
technology is all separate from the
Yeah.
town?
Correct.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
but those are over $5,000 each, and that's why they go in our capital plan.
Mhm.
And then the year after that is when we start to look at replacing boilers, and that's why we have that higher amount. So we want to replace 2 of the boilers at Harwich. And that's where, for the final year.
I have a question. So the 54,000 is for a network switch.
Yeah, network switches.
And why wouldn't that fall under the 250 every year? if we're-
It could. I think the short answer
Don't we own
is,
this building? This is back to us, right?
correct, no doubt.
Why would it appear twice?
So it doesn't. Sarah did not factor Harwich Elementary School in her planning at all because it's done through the district. So it's their capital needs, but we now pay for it. So those costs, even though they're technology related, are not part of the general government plan. They're part of the school district's plan. Again, to answer your question, it isn't that it couldn't happen that way. I would just suggest in the short term, it's much cleaner to have, for accounting purposes, their Department 300, that's what the state knows that education is in our accounting system. So we would track it that way, rather than 154, I think, is what technology is. So there's general government, which is everybody but school, then there's school.
So I'd like to make a comment or an observation. I read in the paper that Orleans is in a situation right now where they're looking at the option of replacing or renovating their elementary school. And the numbers were 40 million to renovate and 50 million to replace, and the replacement would be a smaller school system. So in the town, they're kind of arguing amongst themselves about this $10 million. And what struck me was there was 140 children that were going to that school. And I was bowled over by the construction cost to house 140 children. And so when I look at this, I think this is not a bad situation at all.
No.
Comparably.
You actually have the largest, I believe, elementary school is Harwich Elementary School.
I'm surprised at the number of students.
Really?
And, so in terms of number of students that are in the building is, I would argue, in better shape today than it was when we regionalized. You know, our facilities crew have been keeping up with it. Rick Travers, who's our facilities director, has done a great job of working with Michael to sort of plan out, you know, so that we kind of go in and keep, keep updating, the paints and, and just getting everything, so that it looks like a well-taken care of school. So you want to, for your students, you want to make sure that you're setting the stage for, a good, conducive learning environment. That's what I remember back, in my we'll call it slightly younger days. John Silver at BU, made sure that, that facility was one that, that would promote, good quality teaching and learning. And despite being in a very urban environment, he made sure that, that it was well taken care of. I think you see that same quality of pride happening with the crew over at Harwich Elementary School in each of our buildings.
So when you come to the middle school and what the cost and expenses are, people should just keep in mind that,
Yeah.
keeping these buildings up is just, I keep saying this in this meeting, but maintaining our facilities is just really important because the cost
I
of
have a
construction is so
question.
crazy.
Agreed.
What does a network switch do at a grammar school?
So it controls the traffic on the network, so everything coming in and out. So, because they have the internet has to get to the building and then go out on the
What-
wireless system.
But this is elementary school.
So
What do they,
our security
what-
so we have computers in every classroom.
okay,
They're all connected through wireless access points to the network.
okay.
But also our security cameras, our public announcement system, our telephones, our door security, they're all using the network. Our HVAC system, because it's a joke, I talked to my IT director, and I'm like, you basically are in charge of everything now, because everything goes through IT.
Yeah.
And so we because I've had the exact conversation, the sort of point you're making is, why are we spending so much money on IT? And it's because everything relies on IT now, because everything is through the network. A lot of it's up to the cloud, and
But
without that,
If I may,
we're in
none of
trouble.
that's really different from households going forward. You have Ring, you have Nest, you have all these devices now that are all wireless and all through the network.
And I think to kind of put it into a learning and teaching perspective,
Yes.
The students all have Chromebooks
Okay.
accessible to them, so you'll walk into an elementary classroom.
There's a high demand of technology.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and there might, it might be reading time, and we have software programs and that are set up where the students, even at the elementary level, are logging in individually. It knows who they are when they're logging in, and it will pull up reading materials at their reading level, so that you'll have an entire classroom of children all accessing materials at their level at the moment.
Is there a Monomoy virtual network?
yes. Well, there is a Monomoy network, yeah.
There is a,
Yeah, so we get the internet comes in through Open Cape onto the
Yeah.
high school, and then we have a network, so we take it
Okay.
from the high school and put it
this
out.
ties into the
Yeah.
network, which ties into
Yes.
Open Cape, which.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
We've got a really nice system.
Standalone network,
Yeah, oh,
doesn't
absolutely.
make.
We have a good system. Our IT director,
It's
Jim
not like when we
Birchfield.
went to school, Rich.
or me,
I didn't
yeah.
go to BU, I went to BC. See,
I always say, I went to school and, we had I'm an end of the baby boomers, we had double sessions, and I'm okay, right?
Yeah,
I turned out okay.
yeah.
30 kids in a classroom, I'm
Yeah.
okay. It's just a lot different.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Do you foresee any, other than any large
So
expenditures?
those boilers, and I mean, to your point earlier, these costs go up and up. So last time I did this, I had way less estimate of how much it would cost to replace 2 boilers. And then I went and looked at how much costs have gone up in the last few years, and they've quadrupled.
Right.
So, yeah, this is this year, next year might be more.
Yeah, I had asked the question, you're not the only, or that building is
Yeah.
not the only building
Oh,
that needs boilers.
yeah,
And we have a number of buildings that have a number of boilers. and the boilers are not the same boilers.
No.
My question to Joe last week was, is there one company that actually replaces 17 different
Yeah.
boilers?
Yeah.
And if it, can one company get one contract to do everything?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
guess there's.
Sean Levy
We'll get
said
it.
no.
Interestingly, so there's an organization, a state department, the Massachusetts School Building Authority,
Yep.
and they run a grant program. And they've got essentially two programs, one for building schools and one for major projects. And the two projects they used to cover were roofs and boilers, but they're not doing boilers anymore because they're looking at moving into heat pumps instead of boilers.
Yeah.
So by the time we come to replace this boiler, we might not
Could
even
be
be looking at a
could be a heat
boiler.
Right,
But
exactly.
it's really early, so they haven't actually started a program for funding heat pumps. They're just gonna commission a project to look into it, so, but that's interesting, and that's
Yeah.
kind of probably down the.
That's,
Heat
down
pumps
the
later.
line.
we should know about that, because I would think the cost would certainly come down.
That's why I wanna encourage people to do it, I think,
Then you're gonna want solar.
yeah.
Not necessarily want.
Well,
Yeah.
Must have.
it's gonna make financial sense to have, I
Absolutely.
guess.
Yeah.
So we do have
Yeah.
solar actually on the high
I was
school
at
and the middle
the
school.
Massachusetts Finance Agency meeting over the weekend. They were talking
Right.
about a school in, I think it was Arlington, net zero. All the car parks have solar.
Yeah, solars, yeah.
And where they get the biggest return is they do battery storage and then sell it back to the attorney, but the net zero. They don't
That's
have no
amazing.
utility costs, so yeah, it's quite interesting.
Right.
But some of these little schools were costing $400 or $500 million.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, look at, you look at the new school on, Martha's
Station F.
Vineyard.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got their own problems, but the cost is astronomical.
It's crazy. It's not the operating cost to educate these kids, it's the housing cost, or,
Oh,
the cost to put
the
them in the
building?
school. Yeah.
You know, it's
I was
crazy.
shocked about it.
Thank you very much.
Doing a good job.
Thank you.
Doing a
Thank you.
good job.
Thank you.
Joe?
We should say something nice to Joel, because he's been saying that.
As you walked away from the microphone.
Yeah, like, it's a pleasure working with you.
Now is his
Thank you
turn.
very much.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So next
Okay.
on your agenda is something that I'm keenly interested in. Where's the van taking you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did talk about next week, next Friday, meeting here at 9 AM or a little earlier, taking the van to the disposal area. So I thought that was our first on our list. And then we had some other requests. I think Paul wanted to see the roof on Sisson Road, and he's not here. The harbor is an area that seems to be interesting to people.
Yeah.
And I'd like to even see the elementary school, because I've never been in that building. So those are the four, but we can't do them all at once. So I think we have to, we need to come back to the meeting next week and finish off the work on, you're gonna have the
Well, we're
funding
not gonna, I
sources.
mean, a lot of them is get out of the van, take a look, and back in again. We don't need a tour.
There's not a lot of heavy lifting left on the meeting. The primary consideration I would want you to have for the meeting is to then deliberate, meaning talk about on the record what you just saw in the site visit. So it can be open-ended. It can be discussion on facts relating to site visits, and we can identify the locations or leave it open. So that's the number one point to have the public meeting, is to make sure, because you did not deliberate on a site visit.
You have to.
You can't.
Public
So you
meeting.
deliberate and you discuss at a meeting. I will not be providing funding sources on the 17th.
Okay.
We don't have them yet.
Okay.
First, like I said, the levy is going to be, the tax recap is going to be set hopefully on November 20th. That's going to give me a sense of levy. But again, for capital, we rely upon all these other funding sources as well as free cash. I'm working on a guesstimate really for free cash right now. But given a number of complexities, both local and state, we'll probably will not have free cash certified until January. So as we go forward, I will be talking about proposed funding sources but I think the best opportunity to do that is gonna be December 4th.
So we do that at the select board meeting? You would
So
have it
we would all,
first
we would
reading?
all
That's
talk
where we
about
would
it.
see it the
Again, I
first
still
time.
think it's gonna be estimates at select board, but it's my intent to say, so you folks can tell me on the 17th or another meeting before the 4th, your thoughts on the projects in '25. Those are the ones that will have appropriating articles where I'll be identifying funding sources.
That's what I was talking about, and I think Martha may have interpreted that. A meeting next week, after an hour or two driving around and coming back and talking about X amount of visits to sites that we saw. The main concern of the meeting next week is to go over 25 and our thoughts about the numbers in 25.
Got it.
And either question it or bless it, so we've got something to say, the 10,536,000 for 25, we have no problem with.
Got it.
And if I may, it's my understanding that there may need to be a correction. There was a question from my library director regarding Brooks Free Library in the fiscal year '25.
Yeah.
So I'm
got
working
the
with,
same
yep.
memo.
So I'll be talking about that next week as well.
So we need to do the library next week.
Did the library come in?
So
Or is it under facility management?
it's under facilities maintenance, that's where it will come up. But in any event,
We'll go over.
site visits in the morning, well, everything's in the morning,
9
hopefully.
o'clock.
Site visits at 9 o'clock, we'll meet here, I'll have the van warmed and ready. We'll start out at disposal area, or we could start out from here, go 204 Sisson Road, then back into the disposal area, then go to the harbor, then come back. Harwich Elementary is something I would have to coordinate through
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Carpenter.
get that, right,
So three.
I don't think they'd be opposed to it, but
right. Yeah, I mean, you just can't let us in the building.
not
Security will
willy-nilly.
not allow.
Right, exactly.
Got it.
Okay,
If
then-
anything pops up, anything that you think you want to visit, Martha,
So we're locked into November 17th at
Looks
9
like it.
o'clock?
yes,
Here,
and there'd be the van to take us around.
okay.
Do
That's
you
okay.
have any place you'd like to see that?
You had said the harbor, Dan.
I'm interested in the harbor.
That,
Okay.
Yeah.
the
The
bulkhead,
whole
you want to see the
complex.
bulkhead.
Yeah.
Mark, you want to see the roof? No,
Yeah,
he did.
I'd like to be with Paul and go over the roof at the 204. I still have some questions on that.
Okay.
so.
I'm good.
Ann, did
I'm
you have
good.
any others?
Nope, no others.
do you want to contemplate a meeting after the 17th and before the 4th?
Do you think we?
Recognizing that I will be out of pocket from the
Thanks.
20th to the 28th.
So if we have a meeting on the 17th, you leave on the 20th?
Yeah.
You're out of
Yeah, I'm
pocket.
gone. So I'm thinking in terms of meeting posting, materials and all that for the board, the finance committee. Do you folks have an availability, either on the 28th or the 29th, to just do a check-in meeting?
To make
May
sure
not be
we're all-
necessary, but
Right, yeah.
you know,
What day of the week?
so I think that's either
Tuesday,
Tuesday or
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yeah.
I can't do the 29th, I can do the 28th.
I can do the 28th.
I don't have a calendar in front of me, so.
Again, we may be able to rely upon content next week.
But
I'll
just
put a
in case.
placeholder for the room and for the meeting, the morning of the 28th.
Yeah.
Does that work generally?
Because we have to be all posted before we meet on December 4th. Is that really the?
It's, yeah, I would need to have all material available to the Finance Committee and the Select Board ahead of, I think the deadline that we have is, it would be that Thursday.
We're good.
What time-
So the
And what
28th
time?
at 10?
What time?
I would shoot for that, November 28th, 10 a.m.
10 a.m. And do we have a time for December 4th yet or not?
I think everyone should assume 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, I can't think of a bigger topic that Monday night,
Got it.
but I'm partial because I have to build the capital plan.
Exactly.
Okay, so next week's 9 o'clock.
Yep.
The 28th is 10 o'clock, and the 4th is 6 PM.
So I think for posting purposes, because again, site visit is not a public meeting, it's exempted, and you cannot deliberate. Do you want me to post your regular meeting for 10 a.m. or 10:30, say?
Yeah, you mean here to discuss it?
Yeah,
Well, if we're gonna do 3 places, I
10:30.
think you're gonna need more than an hour, right?
probably.
10:30 at least.
If we
How
don't
many-
start at 10:30, is that okay?
No problem at all.
Okay, yeah.
It's a number, that's.
Yep.
No, okay, that's
It's
what I
for the-
didn't understand.
It's for the
Okay.
public posting.
Yep, yep. And you're gonna bring back the minutes?
Yep.
Yep.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion
Make a
to-
motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
We're out of here.